Hello, hello. How's everybody doing? I know, man, me too. Dude, I cannot wait. It's Monster Hunter Wilds is going to be it's going to be an absolutely insane game. It's going to be nuts, dude. Welcome, guys. Welcome to the stream. My name's MrRageless, and tonight you're inside the Gamerhood. You may have noticed that I'm not wearing my traditional big headphones. We're going to try something new. I have a new setup where we have some in-ear monitoring going on, like I used to have back when I was on stage playing music. You guys can kind of barely see it there. Kind of looks like I'm a news anchor, and tonight I kind of am. We'll be looking at Monster Hunter Wilds reviews that are rip-roaring in. We have people that were able to get their hands on the game early. So we're going to be digging through some of those and seeing what the community's talking about. But as always, before we get gaming, before we get into the news, and before I start chatting, I need to get comfortable. So, as I forget school responsibilities, as I forget work responsibilities, we're going to leave work behind, obviously, because tonight's about business. As always. So, to get comfy, to keep my heart rate down, to remain chill, as the kids say. Do they say that still? I don't know. But so that I remain chill, I'm going to go grab my hand-knitted sweater, courtesy of MrRageless. If you guys have a favorite blanket, a sweater of your own, which would be perfect, favorite hoodie, or just a favorite chair, as you relax on this marvelous Monday night, grab it, let's join together, and let's get hyped for Monster Hunter Wilds. I'm going to go grab my sweater. Peter's going to play a little bit louder on piano. And then we're going to get into the news. Welcome, and thank you so much. Let's hit it, Peter. Ladies and gentlemen. Again, I have a new in-ear system, so let me plug in really quick. Peter, Pumpkin Eater, that sounds great, man. What a pro. Let's share our screen. As always, guys, when we look at news stuff, I'm going to be sure to share the sources with you in chat. Tonight, what I'm also going to do, it's kind of a special night, right? Kind of a special night. What I'm also going to be doing is sharing the source on my screen. Because I think that the people that got early access, they were blessed with early access. The least that I can do as somebody reviewing their review. I'm not going to be giving them scores because they've played the game and I haven't. But as somebody that's going to look at their review, I just want to make sure everybody knows where it came from, make sure that we give them credit. All sources pulled from YouTube. So let's start tonight off with a little news article, some bad news. Let's start with the bad news. Here we go. Peter, beautiful piano. Thank you so much. Okay, guys. So, this isn't horrible news, but this article, which is interesting, is all about the Valve Steam Deck and Monster Hunter Wilds. So, I have like a first gen Steam Deck. I bought it secondhand from a friend who bought a newer one. And I like it for, you know, if you want to play for like an hour in bed or something like that. Because of the power of the Steam Deck, depending on the game, the gameplay it won't last you very long, the battery of the OG, but I heard the newer models are great. But if you're planning on playing Monster Hunter Wilds on Steam Deck, this article you might want to pay attention to. Jack, how are you? I bet you do. There's nothing wrong with playing around a little bit for an hour before you go to sleep. You know what I'm saying? How are you, man? So, Monster Hunter Wilds, there are a lot of reviews that dropped tonight. This is why I'm starting the stream with going over some of the news. We're going to watch some of the reviews. And kind of get into it. I don't know. The game comes out like this week, like Thursday night. If they have a clean launch, right? So most likely Friday, because that's how new games work. But let's go over the news first, and then we'll watch some videos together. So, the source I'm not going to put, because it's on the screen. It's different than videos, but here it is. The Steam Deck, according to this article from PC Gamer. Maybe I should put the source up here. Let's do that really quickly. We have a little piano in the background. Maybe we should. A little bit. I'm doing well, man. Let's do this. I spell that right? I think I did. So, Steam Deck. They're saying that they installed all... Let me zoom in too. They installed all 60 gigs of Monster Hunter Wilds. I feel like that's fair. It's a pretty big game. And they loaded up to a cloud save, right? So if you aren't a Steam player, Steam is the PC port or a marketplace for the vast majority of PC gaming, like probably all of it, other than maybe the Epic launcher, right? Oh, I know. Oh, shoot, you're right. Dude, that's for sure. I'm an idiot. The thing is, too, like right before stream started, I hid all of that. But they just don't care anymore. It's not going to work. Regardless, guys, trust me when I say that, I mean, it's not like I'm big now. But trust me when I say that if you have a Steam Deck, this is probably going to cause some problems for you. So Steam Deck, they're saying, the reporting is that you won't even be able to hit 60 frames per second if you put the game at like potato level. Does that make sense? So the whole article, to sum it up from PC Gamer, is basically that if you want to run it on a Steam Deck, even a nice Steam Deck, you can download the whole game. These saves will work, right? Between your PC and your mobile Steam Deck console. But you will have to run it at like 720 probably. And even then, even if you run it at 720 on your handheld device, an already small screen, right? You might be getting 30 frames, depending on the location you're in. So I don't think this will be a long-term problem. I just don't think it's high on their list of things to care about for a launch. Yeah, I know. But when you're thinking of how many people own and game on their Steam Decks, I'm sure it's a good number. But if you're talking about a company that is traditionally very close with Sony and Nintendo primarily, right? There's just not as much of a history in optimizing for PC or for Steam Decks, and they're not the only ones. I think Asus has a mobile gaming device. There's one more I can't think of, but there's other people trying to become competitors in that marketplace. So it's just really, it's really interesting. It's the only negative piece of news I've really heard about the launch so far from people that have gotten their hands on it. The pre-launch, I should say. Dude, his thumbnails are just, it's like the same. I feel like a lot of YouTubers are doing this too, where like they'll take the same 3 or 5 faces and they'll just cycle through them, like whoever's doing their YouTube things. And it just seems like somebody that I've admired ever since Destiny days, of like listening to podcasts about Destiny, because that's how much I was into that game, right? Was Miss 5000 Watts. She was on like a group podcast. She was one of the hosts of it. And they would just talk about Destiny stuff going on, whatever it might be. Where's Xur in the tower? Stuff, or, stuff like that. Is he there? Well, he was always there every weekend, but like, what is his kit? What is he selling? Is it worth buying? That type of stuff. And then they talk about trials, or they talk about whatever. But even she is starting to do that, where like she has like there's like an inquisitive face, and then a oh my gosh face. And then there's even like a grumpy face. Like a little grumpy face. And it's a little obvious. Now, the first one we're doing Gamerranks. I feel like their thumbnails are pretty funny. Like, it's the same. I don't know if you guys can see this on the right, but it's basically the same thing. But they just switch the head out with a character from the video game, and it's before you buy. And I think it's really funny. I think it's really creative. So before we watch this, let's get into, also, Jack, thank you so much for that heads up. What's funny too is, like, last week I went through, I renamed my computer. I made sure that, like, weather apps weren't showing up. And then when I want to search something, it's just brutal. Nobody can have any fun anymore. Gamerranks. Okay. Sources Gamerranks. So we're going to turn down the music. We're going to watch. Again, I'm not going to rate the videos. I've never played the full game. Some of these people said they've had, like, yeah, like the next one we're going to watch, they said they had 300 hours. Oh, 300. Yeah, I should. But I even changed, like, my name. I can find something else. I'll do a little research on that. So I have a little private thing. It says watch with chat. I'm going to start doing this more, I think. I was looking at my clips. There's the one on Instagram that went freaking crazy. Is just me reacting to, like, a 30-second clip of the fact that the slinger is more sleek and more customized with each outfit in Monster Hunter, like, out of the box. And people thought that was the coolest thing. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I'll just do that for like an hour before I start gaming on stream. So, little heads up. Wherever you're watching, let's get into the video. And let's see what everybody is saying about the game that's coming out this Thursday night. Monster Hunter Wild.
Hey, and we're back with another episode of Before You Buy, that show where we give you some straight up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. As usual, it's me, Jake, and today we're talking about Monster Hunter Wilds. This feels like the culmination of the new generation of Monster Hunter, really. It started with World, kind of was evolved with Rise, and now Wilds takes it all a few steps further in this big jam-packed game. So far, it seems great, with a couple of caveats. What you expect from Monster Hunter, but, you know, with some great creative additions, as well as some tweaks that hardcore fans might not like. We'll talk about that. Otherwise, I've been having a damn fun time here. Let's get into it. But first, of course, just so you know, I've been playing a review copy, and this footage was captured running on a PS5 Pro, and
I was about to say, oh, they're probably playing It Is an Armadillo Party. I wonder what armadillos listen to. Rock and roll. Sorry, I'll leave the jokes to to the professionals. Anyways, so cringe. Probably metal. Yeah. Sorry, I have a new in-ear system, so I want to make sure I can hear everything. I was about to say, I wonder what they captured it on. He just announced it. That's great. Sometimes you just plug a PS4 controller into a computer or something, but, or like me, Xbox controller, but it looks good. It looks okay. I don't love this area of the map. I feel like this was like the least interesting area of the map color-wise. So that's just my feeling.
The footage and my impressions here are spoiler-free. Now, I say that because this Monster Hunter has a lot of story up front.
Be careful if you watch some of these on your own. There's rumor going around X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, that a few games have spoilers in them. I made sure to pick ones that don't. Apparently, they reveal the endgame monster when they shouldn't. And some of these newer YouTube channels that don't understand what a DMCA is, or an NDA, whatever you want to call it. So just be careful if you go looking on your own. If you really don't want any spoilers, I would say just don't get on Twitter or X tonight for the next couple days. Friendly warning.
Monster Hunter here with like a big band of explorers checking out a new region when you stumble upon a child missing from their mysterious home. Of course, the big monsters that roam the land are acting weird, so it's up to you guys to explore, learn, and get to the bottom of things. Monster Hunter games have some story, yeah, but this one is pretty consistently paced and strings you along on this tale. At times, it gets a little bit too long-winded, but thankfully, it's got some quirky characters, some cool revelations, and essentially serves as a good way to introduce people to the complexities of Monster Hunter, sort of. A game where, of course, you kill 6 dinosaurs to make a new pair of pants out of them is actually more complicated than you'd expect. And this time, more than ever, it feels like the creators are aware that Monster Hunter is a lot, and they're willing to hold your hand quite a bit more because of that. We'll get back to that in a bit. And of course, with Monster Hunter, the game is absolutely not over when you finish the story or campaign or whatever you want to call it. So how are the fundamentals here? Like, we can talk about the foundations, and they're very good. Monster Hunter is still fun as hell, man. It's always been like a bit of a dense game, but once you crack into it and feel that thrill of slam dunking a big monster as it charges towards you, that power fantasy, and then you get hooked on that addictive loot loop, Monster Hunter is a very, very unique.
Yes. People were giving me crap on socials because I said, you know what, the beta's great, but I feel like the part of the game that I like isn't there. Like, I wasn't hooked on the beta. It was nice to play around with it. It was really fun to get a feel for how they're changing the weapons, what the world creation's like, 1 or 2 new monsters. That stuff is fun, but there's no addictive loop to that, in my opinion. This is a boss battle game at its core. I like it. But I enjoy chasing the gear. I enjoy crafting it. I like chasing side quests. Like, it's totally a beta, but when I posted something about basically how I felt like there was the really important things that I need to stay interested in Monster Hunter missing from the beta, people were like, well, it's a beta, bro. And it's like, I know it's just a beta, but my point is, for anybody who's never played Monster Hunter, if you were to just play the beta, I don't think people understand, like, there's people that have never played Monster Hunter before. And if you played that beta and nobody's telling you, hey, dude, the beta's great, but the elements that actually make it addicting aren't in there yet, somebody could play the beta and be like, well, this is a fun, like, yeah, I fight bosses. That's kind of cool. Well, but it's a beta. It's like, yeah, but people who have played 6 Monster Hunter games know that. People who have played other Monster Hunter betas know what that's like. But when you're trying to get new people, attracted to the game because you like it, right? I'm not paid to tell you guys that I like the game. It's important to clarify that the fun, addicting part's missing, and it's coming, right? So it will be there. But he brought up the point I was going to say exactly, which is the addicting loot grind is not there, but it's coming. And if you're still hesitant, just wait until, a day after the release or 2 days after the release. Don't feel like you have to pre-order it. That's my opinion. Wait to see on Twitch or whatever what you guys think.
Unique series, and at the very least, this continues that for me, at least as a casual
This guy looks sweet.
This is one that feels familiar at first, but quickly shows more of its different cards. The first thing is this seamless open world. This is a first for the series. Areas were
we never got to fight
separated by zones, loading screens, areas you'd essentially load into to go on a hunt, that sort of thing. Now, it's just a big-ass world you can run around, and you can hunt some monsters, go back to camp whenever you want. Was this switch to full open world absolutely necessary? No, but it's still very nice to have. This sounds like potentially a big change to the game's structure and formula if you know it, yeah, but it actually manages to feel distinctly Monster Hunter still, despite the change-ups.
It is more open world, but they gave you the mount from Rise. So I feel like it'll feel like the size of the map that you're used to if you're an OG Monster Hunter fan. It balances each other out, right? The size of the map is giant. I think there's too many things to loot on the map personally, which I think would solve the scout fly issue. There are people on Reddit saying, there's scout flies everywhere. And I kind of agree with that, but I don't think it's a Scout Fight problem. I think that they litter the map with all these things you can pick up that you may not even need. Like there's an abundance of things to grab to the point where it just gets distracting in a bad way for new players. Because if you make something glow, they'll go to it and try to pick it up. And it could be an extremely unimportant thing. So
victories still feel big and worth savoring, and there's still plenty of management and strategy now, not only at a town or a village, but also camps you can set up and then customize in the world. Here you can plot your next course, you can craft, you can tweak your inventory, stuff like that. There's a lot of custom.
This is gonna be sweet. There wasn't this in the beta, not that I saw or not that I got to play. But this is what I'm excited for. Guys, we have a little commercial break that's not sponsored, but it's just something I wanted to tell you guys about. These are extremely unhealthy for you, but I just found them today at a gas station, and I'm in love with them. They are cold brew caramel M&Ms. M&Ms. If they're not in your mouth, you're doing something wrong. All right, let's get back to it.
Customization like this. Not only this camp-like thing down to the design of the tent, but also a really good character creator, of course, your Palico as well, and fully customizing your Sacred. This is essentially a raptor bird that serves as your mount for the game. Navigating the larger world with this is cool. It runs fast, it has cool kind of raptor-like animations, it can glide, it can navigate trickier shortcuts and sections that you can't use on foot. It's also just a really powerful tool to have.
They're not too sweet. Jack in Twitch chat, that's a great question. Are they too sweet? The caramel and cold brew M&Ms. They're sweet at the beginning, and then there's a tiny, like, chewable caramel center to it. Again, these are not healthy for you, but I'm just clarifying. But then there's an aftertaste that, like, sticks in your mouth and nose that's coffee, and it's actually really good. If you like coffee desserts, if you like mudslides, things like that, go find yourself some freaking M&Ms, bro. Let's get back to it.
Have on the hunt. At any time during a fight with a monster, you can just call this thing in and it'll scoop you right up and strafe around a monster. While doing this, you can let it control itself while you dig into the extra inventory and maybe transfer over items like you need some antidotes or ammo or traps. And then you can also maybe
that was the
your
coolest
blade
thing
on here while you're riding around if you want to, or switch weapons on the fly if the situation calls for it. And this is new, and this is very cool to have, especially for someone like me who has never been like the best at Monster Hunter. Sometimes if I'm dealing with a creature and I'm more of a slower build character, instead of pushing through that, now I can switch to, you know, another weapon, maybe a faster weapon I've practiced with. And I don't know, that's cool. I like the flexibility here. All the stuff on the mount, the Sacred here is
one of the things I saw in gameplay, which I really wanted to try out. I just didn't get the time to. But I saw a speedrun charge blade build, and I think they had a light bowgun as their secondary. And what they would do is, as the monster was running away and land, right before the hunter approached the new fighting location, he would take out his light bowgun and like shoot some like power-up files. He would basically shoot buffs at the ground, because in the beta we didn't really have a bunch of items to give us an increase in attack, right? But I thought that was a fascinating use of the weapon changing mechanic, which was I'm going to play a support on myself and then go back into the fight. I just thought that was a really, really, really cool flow to that guy's speedrun.
Very cool and nicely implemented for the most part. This also makes the pace of fights feel a lot faster, because when a monster is hurt and runs off and changes location, you get to chase it down way quicker. It can be thrilling, yeah, but like it also means you basically never skip a beat, meaning unlike the previous games, you're not as often going to be trudging around trying to track where the monster went and kind of recovering, regrouping. You know, I kind of like that part, the downtime, so the Sacred definitely changes that up. Also incredibly powerful because you can attack the monsters while riding it, and you can also jump off of this thing and slam down onto a monster for some good damage, or to mount it and do some more damage. So you have a lot of capability.
What a crazy monster, dude.
Between riding the Sacred, grappling, hooking around, taking advantage of the endemic life, climbing up on stuff, taking advantage of other things in the environment, you know, like pulling down rocks and stuff on creatures, you can just really kick a lot of ass very easily, especially because now you're also kind of more accurate. You have focus mode, which is where you hold down the trigger and kind of aim the camera and more accurately strike certain areas of a monster that you're gunning for.
Awesome.
It makes it slightly easier to, say, aim for the legs or avoid a more particularly armored area.
I didn't use that enough. I was under the impression, personally, because I was, you know, we were all figuring out the beta, and there weren't a ton of videos of like, here's how you play, right? That'll come. That's the next phase of YouTube for Monster Hunter fans, are all the how-to videos, right? Which is awesome. I think as somebody that's played the last 2 Monster Hunter games, and then my first introduction was on the 3DS, so I'm not a super hardcore veteran, but I've played ever since 4, basically, or 4 Ultimate. I assumed as a veteran that the ability to see their weak points with this like red circle, I assumed that was for noobs. So I strayed away from it, because in my mind, especially as a hardcore world player, my assumption was, well, I'll know when they're weak, or I'll know what to hit based on the anatomy of the monster, based on parts that I've broken, based off of, you know, if their scales look damaged or cut, which those things exist. But when I'm looking at people speedrunning after the betas are done, and I'm looking at all these videos being uploaded, I'm noticing that people were using the weak point trigger way more than I was. So I need to be better at that when the game comes out, because I thought it was a crutch, and I thought like all the cool kids wouldn't be using it, and I was really wrong. So I apologize. We'll get back to the video, but that's something I need to do better when the game releases, for sure.
It doesn't change things completely. You know, you're still kind of unwieldy and goofy, and you'll still miss swings. I mean, I certainly am here in the gameplay. I am not the best at these games, but it does help. And
it's a fun game, dude.
When you're in focus mode, you can identify open wounds you've created on the creature and target those specifically to trigger focus strikes, these special attacks and bonuses that really like rip and tear stuff off of the monsters. These hits are incredibly satisfying and have some unique ways to kind of execute them depending on the weapon you're using, which is nice. Like, you know, a great sword is like a big old running rip and tear, while smaller weapons let you stab the wound and climb up on the animal. And then
so parts of this video, which I have not seen, I feel like are telling people how to play the game. I kind of understand. We can watch this if you guys want to. I feel like I know how to play the game. So what I might do for this first video is I'm going to kind of hover over and see when they get to the criticisms and the positives. Give me a second.
Just kind of go out on my own and learn and figure things out. I'm hunting multiple times to help and draw aggro while your Palico is still also doing stuff. Really, I'm just trying to streamline just how it all goes down. You know, even like meal preparation and stuff like that is all kind of changed up. And like I said, the pacing during the battles is quicker, leading.
Ooh. Okay, I haven't seen this yet. Okay, so this is the crafting menu. As somebody that's played before, I understand this, but I could still see how new players find this a little bit confusing. You know, a great example, as somebody, you know, I've studied some graphic design. I'm not a UI expert, but small things like why the boxes are different heights. Something like if there's no explanation as to what exactly is going on, and obviously if somebody just takes time, they could learn it. But I think just making things as easy to understand the first time you see it would be the best approach. I don't have a solution for them, but I don't know if this is the right approach. There's something about this that seems like I could understand why a new player would find this a tiny bit confusing. With that said, this box in particular, these 2 boxes here, I think are really well done. These first 2 boxes are great. When we have 4 boxes right next to each other at different heights, same width, same, like, I could see somebody's eyes glazing over, but I do think this is a step in the right direction.
To less big, drawn-out, long hunts. I've certainly had my ass handed to me a few times, but I've been finding this adventure way less challenging than Rise or World's main.
It's too early to tell. I don't know if I would have said that if I was him. It's too early to tell.
Quests. I expect things to ramp up in the end game, which unfortunately I can't speak to yet as to like what kind of legs that has, but end game is important to the dedicated Monster Hunter crowds and people that play together in groups. There's more stuff to do, the conditions change, and the variations and change-ups are something that I can't speak to because I haven't seen it all. I think the hardcore Monster Hunter crowd comes to these games and plays them endlessly for the express lack of streamlining, you know, the complications, the time dedication, the challenge. So I'm curious to see how that community takes to this one. But
I agree. Part of it's learning too. I remember going down a rabbit hole of maxing out in World my Charge Blade Blast and trying to get somebody to explain on Reddit why Blast isn't an element. And nobody had a reason other than because, and that wasn't enough for me. So I remember going down rabbit holes of like, why though? Why doesn't it cause fire? Like, what are we talking about? And sometimes those are just fun rabbit holes to go down. So I get what he's saying. In terms of things being difficult or not, I would tell my knee-jerk response is like, well, just try a different weapon. So you beat the game, you beat a really hard monster, that's awesome. You know life the long blade. Why don't you try to do the whole thing again, but with a long bow or with a I don't know, a lance, like a gun lance. Like try something different. That might be a good way to, you know, use a weapon you're not familiar with. I feel like that would be a good way to shift the difficulty slider in Monster Hunter, traditionally speaking.
For me, as someone who, I'll admit, has just kind of always played through these adventures casually and had a good time, I've certainly had a good time here, but I wanted a bit more challenge. And I know some Monster Hunter fans can argue, well, the main story, the early quest thing is just enough to get you through and teach you everything. But still, just coming as someone who has played Worlds and Rise, like I found those way more compelling and challenging. But like difficulty concerns do not completely sour my experience though. The new monsters are really, really creative examples of outside the box thinking. You know, how these creatures react with their worlds and their environments is often tied nicely to their design. And you see some bizarre stuff. So now, even if I'm not getting one-shotted, like enemies still take a little while to learn like when to step away, when to dodge, when to block. But again, I can't express just like how cool the monster change-ups are. Gone are the basic T-Rex looking monsters. Now it's like over-the-top insane like Pokemon dragons and weird gross bug things, many of which are very memorable. The music is also still absolutely incredible, and like, you know, how it kicks in after a triumphant victory, all that stuff that you're looking for, that always still hits.
The music hits. The music slaps, chat. The music in this game absolutely murders. They did a great job.
Seeing these creatures exist in these worlds, sleep, patrol, heal, herd, respond when wounded, it's all as cool as it has been in previous games. And I think the team just does a really good job of building areas too, like the environments themselves, like having all these nooks and crannies and good verticality. Maybe the open world is a little too big here, you know, maybe just a little big for the sake of being big, but it still has a lot of the depths and charms from World, at least to me. The game also does a good creative job of introducing weather patterns and essentially transforming some of these environments in really fun and satisfying ways.
I'm going to be taking mental notes too of the criticisms, which I think Capcom's always good at taking, but I'm just going to be looking for overlaps. Maybe I'll write some down. That's a good idea. Forgot to put chapstick on. Give me a second. So some of the criticisms were, chat, help me out. I think they said story was too easy. and I'll keep a little tally mark. Story was too easy was a criticism. Map too big? Question mark. Those are the two main criticisms I heard so far. And if we, as we watch these reviews, I think I'll see where the circles overlap, and we'll go from there.
Change their look, but can also affect resources and how monsters appear and what they do. Also, a big part of the story is dedicated to explaining like the cultures and the monsters and how they react to the world changing and stuff.
United, thank you, man. Thank you so
if
much.
You care to pay attention to it. And performance-wise, on console,
thank you for the follow. I appreciate it.
Performance and fidelity mode.
Thank you.
And I played on performance. It's nice having a solid frame rate that would only stumble sometimes for me. But
thanks, man.
The bigger problem is that some of the textures and environment lighting just stylistically does not look good. Some textures look so bland, they almost look low resolution. And some areas just come off really gray and drab where they...
Jack, you hear that? I'll use his first and last name because I'm not going to use his middle. Jack Hawk and I were both saying when we were playing the beta that some of the areas just feel one color. Even from the beta, I could tell that. I think that that's fine if the monsters stand out. I don't know what the spider is called because I didn't get a chance to play against him. But his environment was a great example of a lot of blues and greens and grass overgrowing and water, and there was stuff happening in that color scheme. But then the flower on the back of the spider is like bright red and his body's black. I feel like that's a really cool environment where the monster still belongs there, but does not blend into the rocks or whatever, you know. there's just a difference in how to use color in a creative way. So he was saying that textures look low res. Okay, I'm gonna write down all these criticisms.
It really shouldn't. Some of it is intentional because of the world and how it progresses after certain sequences, but you know, it still just doesn't look very good. I think they've gotten a lot of mileage out of the bones here, like the framework of these Monster Hunter games, but visually it seems like it's starting to all strain a little bit. Still, the positives here are the detailed character armors, the fur, the color palettes overall, and again, having a solid frame rate. I wasn't able to test multiplayer out too much, but it seems to have the full suite of features that you would want. You don't have to get too far into the game to be able to access these, thankfully, and you can create link parties to get friends in and just play as long as you want. And
crossplay, by the way, if you guys are new. Someone, Jack and Twitch, someone on the design team gets excited and creates monochromatic environments. I would agree with you. I think they might have gone a little bit too hard in the vibes area. But I think that would be okay if the monsters stuck out more. Like if he had more blues and purples on him versus like that dark navy color. Even if it was just like 50% more blues, I feel like you would accept it and say, oh, this is, because that's way better than like putting an outline around the guy that you're supposed to hit, because we don't want that, right? That would be way too obvious of like, here's your target. Nobody wants that. But
you can do this in the environment. You can also send out the SOS flares I mentioned earlier to just get help from some randoms. But me personally, as a single player gamer, I just tend to hunt solo more often than not, or at least me and my cat friend here. So again, this is where we come at Monster Hunter. I've always appreciated the series, but it clicked with me with World in 2018, and now I look forward to these games and hunting monsters. Where World was challenging and detailed, Wilds is faster, quirkier, more colorful, more customizable, and a little more story-oriented. I think there's a lot to enjoy here if you're a player like me, but if you play these games for hundreds of hours, your mileage may vary. I think time will tell, and I'd like to revisit this more in the future. But for now, this is a before you buy. You know how this goes by now. I give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinions. And now I want to hear yours. This is dropping a couple of days before release, so I do want to know what you expect, what you're
Source should be on the screen, and I'll drop it into chat for everybody once the video's over.
Looking forward to, if this is going to be your first Monster Hunter or not. Let's talk about this series. Are you like me, you play them casually, or are you someone that has been like grinding away on your 3DS and Monster Hunter games for years?
Let's
talk about this stuff. Anything at all, let us know in the comments. And if you like this video, maybe, you know, hearing our first impressions and seeing the gameplay on screen here, maybe it, you know, steered your purchasing decision.
He's talking about me. Oops.
We appreciate that. And if you're new, consider subscribing, maybe hitting that notification bell, because we put out videos every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
That was a good video. I'm going to copy. I'm going to make sure I put it in chats. If you guys want to watch it, if you want to give it a thumbs up, whatever you want to do. That was Gamerranks. It was a pretty good video. I feel like they do a really good job. Their Before You Buy series is really solid, in my opinion. The criticisms that they have were that the story was too easy. The map could be too big. They kind of had a question mark around that. But then they said the texture environments looked low resolution. So I'm going to watch. I have 3 more videos I wanted to watch here from people that I've, like Eric's Gaming is solid. Rage Gaming videos. I found him around the time I was getting into like Path of Exile. And I really like his videos. This one's a monster. But I follow him on X and he's solid too. So we have a few more videos to watch. I just want to get a sense of like the community's vibes on the game. I don't have a lot of trust for traditional news outlet game rankings. But you know, it's also important to know that YouTube people can get bought off. So we're just going to take a little swath. We're going to survey the audience, so to speak, before we make any decisions. And as always, guys, this is #NoAd, and you are not forced. Nobody's twisting your arm. Do not pre-order a game if you're hesitant. There's no need. You're not going to miss out on anything. You'll be fine. I promise. I really want to. If there's anything we get across in this channel, I just want to make sure people don't feel like they're missing out. Waiting a day or two is you'll be fine. Everybody will be fine. Oh, here's an ad. Okay, source on this one is dude, Daredevil's legit. I know I said I'd skip this. I'm not going to listen to it because it could be copywritten. But that's one superhero show I might have watched multiple times. I hope the new season's good. I heard it might be even more gritty than the other one.
Hey guys, it's Paradise, and it's finally happening. Our Monster Hunter Wilds review after sinking in a combined 300 hours.
I'm not creative enough in my palico design. I think I'm figuring that out right now. These people are like crazy, dude. I just don't like making goofy looking. Not my guy's probably a little goofy looking to some people, but I saw somebody make Ronald McDonald the other day. It popped up on my Instagram. They made their character straight up look like Ronald McDonald from McDonald's. Oh, it was great.
As huge Monster Hunter fans, of course, we were going.
And this is The Witcher. That's great. Oh, good job.
Enjoy this game. But it is still a Capcom game, and we cover a lot of Capcom titles on this channel, so we feel it's our responsibility to review it honestly, including both the positives and negatives.
Good.
We've had an absolute blast with the game, and as such, we think it will get positive reviews across the board. But as massive Monster Hunter fans and part of the community, we wanted to take the extra effort and care to point out the issues that you, the rest of the community, would want to know before jumping in.
Yeah, the caveat too here is this game will be possibly the highest selling game Capcom releases this year, almost regardless of the number that it gets. Like if somebody gives it an 8 or somebody gives it an 8.5 and then another outlet gives it a 9, like as long as it's over an 8, in my opinion, the entire community is going to buy this game, and even people who have never heard of Monster Hunter, because the community is so solid and they've been treated so well over the years that Capcom has trust in the bank. So regardless of what these videos, if they do give a number, let's not harp on them. Let's not go into their chats and give them crap or anything. But regardless, this will be from a numbers perspective, a very high selling game for Capcom.
We'll only be using trailers and early game footage, so there won't be any spoilers here. And to be clear, Monster Hunter Wilds is amazing, but it's not exempt from criticisms that we will point out. If you're a massive Monster Hunter fan, most of these won't impact your enjoyment, and you're still going to have a blast. But as we progressed through the game, there were some things we didn't expect. Basically, some things in the game were not what we thought they would be like. So let's get into things, starting with what exactly Monster Hunter Wilds is. Of course, it's a Monster Hunter game, but...
Okay, so I'm going to skip through this. What is Monster Hunter? It's like, yeah, we understand. I want to know, if you guys want to know what Monster Hunter is, you can look at the last video. I don't really want to go rehash that every single video we watch, so I'm going to skip forward.
Delivers and feels so good. Now, the main story is around 10 to 15 hours long, but keep in mind, this is just the start of the game. It's essentially just low rank. This isn't where you're going to be spending most of your time anyway. And I will say those 10 to 15 hours were jam-packed with some awesome story moments. We can't talk too much about the story, especially late game stuff due to the embargo, but we will say there were some jaw-dropping moments, huge lore reveals, and for fans of Monster Hunter 4U, there was some exciting stuff. However, some of the final parts of the story did leave us feeling mixed. While the story itself and lore was incredible, absolute 10 out of 10 stuff, it brought back memories of how Monster Hunter Stories 2 handled Altura at the end, and hopefully this can be expanded on in future title updates. The hunter being voiced, though, was an excellent addition. It made us feel like our characters were a part of the world and story, and it's hard to imagine ever going back to a silent protagonist after this iteration.
Yeah, and we just got done replaying Worlds, right, on stream, and that's just the running joke, is your guy never talked, which is fine. The thing that I would assume they do well, the thing that I liked in the beta, is that the character models, if you're playing in English, the mouth moves as if you're speaking English. Even in Worlds, it was still overdubbed into English. So it's a nice little piece of fan service, I think.
You genuinely will
makes it more immersive, you know,
attached to your hunter than ever before, thanks to this and the story writing, and the music was just fantastic too, especially some of the later fights. As for the monster roster though, the variety was pretty great, but the overall number of monsters is lower than Base World or Rise, which is a little disappointing, but that said, they are incredibly fun fights and the variety again is spot on. It would have just been nice to have a few more. Once the story is complete though, it's good to know that high rank exists, and we can't talk about high rank in detail yet, but it's very reminiscent of traditional Monster Hunter high rank experiences with plenty of things to farm. During our review period, there was...
Just got a tornado warning. We're totally fine. I just checked it. Yeah, we're not in any danger. I don't know why they gave us this warning. That's crazy. They're going to freak people out for no reason, dude. Wow. That's not good. Let's keep watching.
No DLC, event quests, crossovers, or pre-order bonuses available to try out, so we didn't get to experience how event quests and DLC and microtransactions are going to be handled. We simply do not know. One of the biggest marketing points for Wilds was the idea of a big, seamless world, with fully connected ecosystems that you can travel through without loading screens. And for the most part, that is true. Now the thing is, if you're someone who enjoys exploring the maps in games, Wilds has some really diverse areas with a lot of awesome ecosystems, monsters to observe, and overall some areas just look fantastic. Going out into the world really can lead you to getting lost as you just explore and feel immersed in Monster Hunter. There's really awesome things that you can just witness if you just happen to be somewhere at the right time. The weather shifting is pretty fantastic as they dynamically change and everything looks different all around you, and overall the world just feels so good to be in. I have to point out though, while you can collect the endemic life, there isn't anywhere to display it, and you don't have a house or a home that you can outfit and customize, which is a bit of a shame. but the actual world itself is done very well, and I really enjoy my time just wandering around in it. The bigger issue is, though, outside of exploration and gathering, the seamless world doesn't feel as necessary or utilized as you might think. Most of the time, you'll still just be launching quests either via Alma or from your tent, kind of.
Do I care about that criticism? Huh. Do I? I think. So that's 2 votes for maps are too big. I don't think he's mentioned the environment yet.
Similar to how you would in past games. It's easier and faster to just fast travel between areas and just hunt traditionally by posting quests, rather than running out into the world all the way over to a monster and then hitting it until the quest starts. And while there is
Pierre.
the environmental link system that does allow for some seamless co-op play out in the world, in practice you will likely just use the link party or lobby system to launch hunts together, making the seamless world feel like a bit of a missed opportunity. That being said, there is still tons of quality of life sprinkled everywhere in the game, from cooking out in the field to a loadout system that you can even share with your friends.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Wow. But what's cool, YouTubers are really going to, do a great job with that as well. My hope would be that they don't just post, like, people that spend thousands of hours in the game. My hope would be they don't just post, like, oh, here's the best end game. It's like, well, I'm not even at end game. It would be cool to see what the community says is like the best, the best gear for the first 100 hours or something like that. I don't know. There's a lot of opportunity for like community-driven content. I like that.
And even a reworked wishlist system that makes keeping track of what you need to farm even easier and more streamlined than ever before.
That's sweet.
Overall, much of the finicky stuff in the series has simply been improved in many aspects. The art style is fantastic though, and there's plenty of moments where you have to just stop and take in the environment. But here's the thing, the weather system plays a huge role in how the world actually looks and feels. In the Plenty state, areas look incredibly vibrant, they're full of life, color, and movement. It's just incredible. But then when the inclemency state kicks in, everything suddenly becomes dull, washed out, and grey.
Yes. And it could be on purpose. Maybe there's some story I don't know. Maybe there's something I don't know and I'm just an idiot, right? That's fine. But I think there's a way to visually tell people, because we thought this in the beta. We said this in the last video too. There's a way to tell people things are getting darker, something's happening, right? While still, especially in a JRPG game, there's ways to make a dark feeling place colorful and still interesting. The monochromatic thing that we've talked about a few times. Maybe there's a storied reason for it, but I felt the same way. It's just not a great look.
Now, this is obviously an intentional weather system, and it plays a major theme in the game and its story, and even the gameplay. But it does mean that depending on when you're exploring, some places just don't look as good as they could in other weather states. Now let's talk about co-op. Of course, this is where Monster Hunter truly shines, and Wilds is no different. Taking down massive monsters with friends, reacting to each other's clutch mode.
This guy will fart in your face, by the way. I don't know if you guys knew that. Little fun fact. Kongalala, he will do a 180 and fart in your face and you get knocked down. That's a real thing. Grown men made this video game.
Moments, laughing at your buddies and their failed attempts, coming up with new strategies on the fly and more is where the magic's at. And Wilds delivers.
And he'll do it for free. You don't even have to pay him. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that insane?
That same feeling of hunting with friends. But unfortunately, when it comes to story co-op, it is still a staggered and frustrating experience, even though it's ultimately worth it. It's slightly improved from previous games, but it's still not where it needs to be. In Wilds, the link party system allows you to group up with up to 4 players, and every quest that you do will automatically send invites to your link party members. It's a great and streamlined improvement, so you don't have to post and join everything from the quest board. But the way that story quests work is kind of like Monster Hunter World again. You watch the cutscene alone, the hunt starts, and then others can join on you or you can join others, but it is streamlined with that party link system. Once the hunt is then done, you get your cutscene solo again and you're sent back to your own world. You can't just play through the entire story in co-op seamlessly, and if you do try to join your friends to experience that hunt together in the story, if you get hit at any point while trying to join, you have to try and accept that invite all over again.
Yikes. Hopefully they patch that. That's freaking annoying. I'm sure they don't want people to abuse it in the sense of like not dying, right? So I get it, but that's not good. I'm sure there must be another solution, Capcom.
It's needlessly frustrating, and we really hoped this would be more streamlined for a smoother co-op experience in the story. But that is just the story. If we're talking about hunting in co-op with no story progression involved, then the overall co-op system is greatly improved, with 100-player lobbies, squad lobbies, the link party, and environmental link system.
100 party lobbies? What?
Meaning co-op hunting is a blast and a breeze,
What?
but story co-op is lacking. I think if they just made it so that you can smoothly group together and transition through the story and cutscenes as a group instead of individually, it would just make the co-op and the story experience so much better. Perhaps they could even tie the other hunters into the background of the cutscenes and just make you feel like you're part of a group as you're...
Yeah, I was going to say that. I was kind of holding my tongue. I think that's a big ask. Like, because then you're talking about voice lines changing. Like the actual words somebody would say would be different if they're addressing a group versus a singular person. So I'm sure there's some games that have pulled that off. And I would prefer a more seamless, if what they're saying is true, which I'm assuming it is, I would prefer a seamless multi-playing experience. And it sounds like the majority of the game will be that. But you would almost have to rewrite the entire story. Or have two versions of it, because what if you do play solo? Are they still going to be addressing a team? Or like how would... Yeah, so it's a little confusing to me. I don't know about that. That's not as big of a deal.
You're going through the story seamlessly. It's not like a huge problem, but having to constantly leave and rejoin each other mid-hunt as you're going through these cutscenes and story moments is just a little annoying. So if they could smooth that out, it would be the ultimate story experience for Monster Hunter.
That looks sweet.
Another thing I have to point out is the suspicious lack of the Gathering Hub. Of course, you have these massive 100-player lobbies, the link party system and all of that, and you have your base camps and the pop-up camps, but there is no traditional style Gathering Hub that you would normally see in a Monster Hunter game.
Well,
are you really the last person to find out?
Oh my gosh. Isn't that the main city? Like the settlement in that area, I thought that was kind of like the Gathering Hub. Maybe I'm wrong, but it felt like the tower from Destiny, which I think was really cool. I liked it.
Now, unfortunately, we can't talk about high-rank weapons and decorations due to the embargo, but we can say that weapons and armor skins are a massive step up from World and Iceborne, even Rise and Sunbreak. There is a ton of variety and attention to detail. It's insane.
That looks sweet. That looks so cool. Should I move my camera just a little bit so you guys can see that? Look at that guy. What the frick? That looks awesome. I like that. I love that, dude.
Insane. Layered armor is also much easier to unlock as it's simply gained from crafting high rank gear, so fashion hunters when it comes to armor will be very, very happy.
Nice.
But layered weapon skins don't seem to be a thing, which is highly disappointing. I should also point out in the recent Play event they revealed some endgame details about Wilds, so I can confirm the existence of tempered monsters, frenzied monsters, and the Artian weapon crafting system.
The other thing too is a lot of people are comparing this game to Monster Hunter World, and when they say that, what they mean is, well, I have And I have 2 games I'm comparing it to, because they're comparing it to World and Iceborne, which were rolled out over, the full package, including DLC and like side quests. You're talking about like a year or 2. But you're comparing a fresh vanilla game to another game that has a DLC attached to it that's basically a second game. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to play. I'm not going to judge what these guys are saying because I've never played it. But I wonder if when people say, it's not as deep as World or there's not as much content as World, I wonder if what they mean is what you would buy now, which is if you go on Steam or if you go on Xbox, whatever, you're basically buying both of the games together because it's the full package. It's Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter World Iceborne. So it's literally the same game.
Now, of course, I can't show you any of this, but that's essentially a late-game crafting system as described in the Play event. But overall, there is that usual Monster Hunter stuff you would expect in high rank, like the tempered monsters, which are of course harder variants, and a thing to chase when it comes to finding these parts to craft these weapons that have different stats on them. The Palico system has also been streamlined, but in doing so, some of the depth and control over their tools, gadgets, and skills is gone. While they're still very fun to hunt with, you simply don't have as much control over them, but don't get it wrong, they're still super useful and entertaining to watch. Their gadgets are genuinely funny and cute once you unlock them, you just really have no control over anything. Now there are 14 weapons in total, just like the betas.
It's a little disappointing.
Each weapon has new moves and generally more depth than previous games. That being said, outside of various balance tweaks and changes, the general flow of the weapons is the same as the beta, with the various improvements that Tokuda mentioned in the community update. I will say though, some weapons maybe didn't get as much attention as others, but that is subjective, and to be honest, I still enjoyed my time with each of them. I also want to highlight the cooking system, as it is worth mentioning because it's pretty cool with the portable barbecue, the new ingredient system and animations. It simply wouldn't be Monster Hunter without the food. But next, let's talk about the performance and graphics. We tested the game on RTX 4080s, 11th gen i7s, 32GB of RAM, and ran it at 1440p.
You like computers? Good luck. I kind of zoned out for a second and I don't want to rewind, but they're running it at 1440p.
To be honest, performance was all over the place. For me in 2.6, we have the same PC, but it ran much better than the betas for me, while it ran much worse for 2.6. For some of us, it had minimal issues, while for others, it had a lot of crashes and bugs. Even with the same hardware, performance was inconsistent, making it quite odd. On PC, we did experience some ghosting, frame drops, and crashes, while at the same time, you could have got lucky and had a smooth experience. Console performance for us is unknown as we've played on PC, and it is worth noting the HD texture pack wasn't available during the review period, so we think the game could look even better with that, but overall we thought the game looked great, at least during the plenty weather period. I will point out though that the main issue I was getting was visual bugs where textures would fly all over the screen, making it kind of unplayable at times.
What?
So performance is just overall...
No, they can't do this. No.
Inconsistent. Peppo even reached out to us as he was having these same issues and also uses a
No. Oh no.
4080, so again, performance is just variable even with the same GPUs and hardware. But performance aside, the overall Monster Hunter Wilds experience was fantastic. It's an evolution of the series, the story focus is a great addition, the gameplay is as fun as ever, and it feels like Monster Hunter is going in the right direction. We had a blast. But there are some areas that feel like they could have been expanded or improved on, especially the co-op story experience and the seamless world not quite reaching its full potential. But as always, Monster Hunter is mainly about the gameplay, and in that regard, it delivers. The story and overall experience makes Wilds a top-tier Monster Hunter game. For our final score, we're going to give this a 9 out of 10.
For a game to just have been talked about like it just was in terms of performance issues, for a game to get talked about like that, Like, we had random performance issues and we couldn't figure out how to fix it. And then for them to give it a 9, this game must be absolutely amazing. Any other time I hear feedback like that, it's at least a 7 or an 8. Like, that's insane.
It's very close to a 10, but there's some obvious things holding it back, especially performance. Capcom have delivered an incredible Monster Hunter game this time around, but we do hope future updates will expand and improve on some of its aspects. Hopefully this was a helpful and interesting review to you, covering all the different aspects of the game that we experienced. So drop a like below if you did enjoy it, and subscribe for more Monster Hunter Wilds content coming your way very soon. Here at Arix Gaming, we're two friends who love to play games. You have me.
So that was Eric's. I just put the link in chat. That was really good. The first one, again, Before You Buy, was on PlayStation. Their review was on PC. I know sometimes the audiences are mixed in what they can or what they have or what they can afford. Keeping a little checklist here, chat. Both of them talked about the map possibly being too big, the colors looking too dull at times. Duh. He brought up a new one, which was a lack of control over palicos, which I thought was interesting, because I haven't heard anybody talk about that yet. Positives are, again, new wishlist system, new gear setup sharing, streamlined link system, and then they said that the new cooking system's great. So let me pull up the next video. I'm still feeling pretty good about the game. I think as a PC player, the fact that performance is random is not very settling. I feel like the beta was fine, but it was extremely good because it was new. It was a new experience. Them saying it's random is not great. Again, Capcom, especially Monster Hunter, their strength is with Sony, their strength is with Nintendo. I think they're still figuring out what to do on PCs, but Wilds now feels great, or World right now feels amazing. So I'm convinced they'll fix it. It's just a matter of how long it will take for them, to dial the game in. So, all right. Before we get this next one up, let me update the source. Again, we're just going through what the community's saying about the game. I just think it's important to get feedback from people that I've followed on YouTube for a while, and people that I, as a consumer, trust. I don't know these people personally, and feel free to disagree. You will not be banned. If somebody feels differently or thinks it's not important, by all means, disagree. All right, so let's get into the next one. Let's see what platform that they reviewed it on. It says they played 100 hours of the release. So let's see how it goes. Let's look at it.
Monster Hunter Wilds. It's not just, in my humble opinion, the best Monster Hunter game of all time. It is making a strong case.
Good Lord. He is going after it right off the rip. We're not even 15 seconds in yet. Good Lord.
That it is my favorite game of all time. And I firmly believe that Wilds is purely a masterpiece. And yes, my Palico has a frog on his head. He's called Ribbit.
Ribbit.
Exactly.
We are so back, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, my
I need to turn this down. Why is he talking so loudly?
fellow hunters. It is with great pleasure that I bring to you my full and as spoiler-free as possible review of Monster Hunter Wilds. A big thank you to...
He's usually not this close to the mic. So in my defense, when I say I follow this guy, I do follow this guy. I like his content. I've never heard him speak that closely into the mic before. So I apologize. I apologize.
Capcom for providing early access so we can...
That one, That armor's amazing. That might be the coolest chest plate, like shoulder combo I've seen. 88 hours. Hunter rank 74. Ooh, looks like we might get custom little tags here. That'll be cool. I like that.
Bring you our thoughts and indeed everything you could ever want. Wilds-wise, it's all upcoming over the next days and weeks. And believe me, you don't want to miss it. Do the subscribe bell thing shenanigans. You know how it be. But that
Sources on the screen. I have a feeling he's going to say that he liked the game.
That all said, the opinions here are simply mine own. There is no requirement for me to be anything other than honest, and that's exactly what I will be. But of course, I am a lifelong Monster Hunter fan, starting with the very first game, way back on the PS2.
Yeah, like the water here doesn't look great, right? Like if we're being completely honest. I'm assuming he's playing on PlayStation. We'll figure it out. My lights just flickered. I know earlier I said there might be a tornado warning in my area. I'm completely safe. It's on the complete other side of the city. But with that said, my power might go out. So thanks for hanging out, guys.
I have been through all of the series' highs and all of its lows. And I never imagined it would be possible for a new Monster Hunter game to make me feel the way Wilds has. What drew me to this series was this unparalleled feeling of wonder, of discovery. Yes, the hunting and the murdering and the wearing of the skin of the beasties, and that loop has always been delicious. But for me...
This guy he is unhinged in this video. Oh, I'm so happy I put this in my rotation for today. I needed this. I needed this so badly.
It's that subtle under-the-surface magic of a world that is breathing around you. And never has those breaths been so sweet. 7 years ago, Monster Hunter World came out, and it became clear that Capcom had somehow found a way to completely revolutionize the series while still maintaining its heart, still paying homage to its past, but elevating it to heights that any Monster Hunter fan could never have thought possible.
If you know, you know. That's what he just said. TLDR is that if you know, you know. And if you were specifically an Xbox player, you may have never, like, this was probably the most, like, this was the catalyst that brought them, the entire franchise, into, like, mainstream. There's a ton of Monster Hunter fans, right? There have been a ton of Monster Hunter fans for a long time. But in terms of fully translating the game and having success in the West to the point where it's like a household name for gamers, that Monster Hunter World was the thing. Maybe not at launch, maybe not until Iceborne. That's debatable. But Monster Hunter World might be a perfect Monster Hunter game, in my opinion.
When playing Monster Hunter Wilds, it's become clear that Capcom have found a way to revolutionize the series while maintaining its heart, paying homage to what has come before, while taking it to new heights I would have never thought possible. And
Crazy.
Guys, it's just so good!
Why I turned it down.
Oh god, I love this.
I apologize for whatever you guys are about to hear.
Now, of course, it's not
What the
all
frick?
perfect.
What is
There
this?
are a few...
Dude! I'm trying to watch your game. What are you doing to my chat? What are you doing to my channel? I was like, I'm going to pick a nice group of people that have level-headed responses. I apologize. He put in a bunch of hours, but I've just... This vibe is throwing me off a little bit.
What negatives I want to talk about. one of the negatives kind of needs me to tread on that murky line between spoiler and not spoiler, so I'll save that one for the end, and just my cons in general a little bit later. For now, let's get into this properly. And it's genuinely difficult to know where to start. I could easily say that think of every core part of a Monster Hunter game: the hunting, the weapons, the monsters, the armor, the set building, the endgame loop, the story, the low to high rank experience, the secrets, the side content, the unlocks, the characters. Everything is better than it has ever been, and
Good
it makes
God.
me so happy to be able to say that. I love Monster Hunter, and Wild has given me, as a multi-thousand-hour veteran of the series, a experience I never thought possible again, because there is no experience like your first Monster Hunter game.
This guy is talking. I like his videos. I like his channel. I'm sure he'll get into negatives. So far, it sounds like he's giving somebody the talk. I love your videos, dude. If you ever see my reaction to your video, I would love to hunt with you sometime. This sounds like you're talking to somebody about the birds and the bees. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. And maybe that's what he's going for. I was just expecting like a more level-headed take, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I'm committed now, though.
There's no experience like a new Monster Hunter game, but those two things are different. When you're playing your 5th new Monster Hunter game for the first time, you kind of know what to expect. You know what to look for, kind of how to operate. And there's lots of that here, of course, but the actual fabric of your journey through Wilds is so fresh in how it is presented to you, in how you smoothly flow through it, that it felt like I got to play my first Monster Hunter game again for the first time. And I don't think I have sat there more just smiling my head off while playing a game ever, and going through it.
So I do want to point out, guys, I have I have a little notepad. At the top, I have the negatives, and when people repeat them, I'm tallying them to see where people like overlap. I have a feeling I won't really write much up here for him. Time will tell, I guess.
With Cotton for the Pro and Noob series, it's just memories of a lifetime. Seriously, you're not ready for how much fun this journey
This guy,
is
dude,
going to be with us, and I can't wait for you to experience it. But here's a snippet with Cotton. Now his veil is lifted. The visuals aren't the actual hunt, of course, because I don't want to spoil you guys on anything unnecessarily, but just give it a listen.
All of it, everything. I'm so happy about Wilds, man. It's so good. It's the fucking.
Just as a
they
concept,
fucking
I'm really pleased.
Oh, man.
Profanity incoming.
I'm
Like-
just,
like this-
you know.
Like, I feel like every 5 seconds of gameplay, I'm like, oh, I'm really happy about this small thing that they changed that a lot of people aren't going to think about. And it's like, yeah, but there's so many of those. There's so many of those.
Yeah, genuinely, you're not wrong. It's just kind of hard to kind of process just how good everything is.
It's just like from quality of life to like immersion to just satisfying hunting. There's so many just little things that they have done and found to just make it so much better.
It is
I
the
love it.
best Monster Hunter has ever been. Like, absolutely.
It is.
It is unbelievably peak. And I think that actually really does encapsulate what it's like.
I am excited for this game. I'm not going to lie. It's just when I look up reviews, I'm like, oh, there's level-headed responses. We'll figure out how it is. I'm actually happy people are geeking out about it generally. Like, all joking aside, it is nice to see somebody that I do trust on YouTube. He has quality content. Kind of geek out about it. And I don't want to be a downer, and maybe I've been a downer, so I apologize. But it is really refreshing to hear somebody that is obsessed with the franchise feel like they're being catered to, and the product that's quality is being put in front of them and delivered with white gloves, saying, "Listen, we heard your feedback. We're changing a few things. We don't know how you're gonna like it, but you've come to our restaurant and you've trusted us as a chef for how many years? Why don't you try this thing? Just try it. Let me know. Like, that's, I think, what people are looking for when they say that they want developers to listen to them. Like, they want to be served a good meal, right? I'm not a chef. I go to a chef for a good meal. Sometimes there's restaurants where you don't get to pick what you order. Those are really fancy places. I've only been to it once, but it's like, hey, today this is what we're having. It's like a 5-course meal. And we hope you enjoy it. You know, if you have allergies, you know, there might be 1 or 2 things that they change, but it's genuinely really fun for me to hear somebody so geeked out about a game in a non-shilly way, because I just haven't heard excitement like this about a game before. Maybe the last time was probably Baldur's Gate, but it's not really a multiplayer game. I was going to say Baldur's Gate and Elden Ring, but those are not really... There is PvP in Elden Ring, but that's not primarily why people play it. So maybe I'll rephrase my take really quickly if you'll allow me. I think that it's refreshing to hear somebody talk about a game that's primarily multiplayer RPG focused, and they feel like they're still getting heard and they're getting served a quality product. I think it's really fun to hear. You've only been to one? I've only been to one too. Dude, I know. And I think we split the meal. Like, it was something where, like, the how do I put this? The patriarch of the family was like, we'll get everybody's meal. I was like, no. No, you're not. You are not doing that. No. I saw the menu. You are not doing that.
Like to play Wilds. No matter how much experience you have with the series, everything you come across, from the tiniest little detail, like simply watching a random NPC go about their routine in the world, all the way to the broad hunting loop, everything has this feeling of...
Fishing confirmed. It's the first video we've watched. It's the first video we watched where people are actively fishing. Fishing confirmed, guys.
God, that's just so good. It's so much better than it was. Oh my, there's this appreciation that's just...
Hell yeah.
Doesn't go away. Like,
I have a friend that won't play a game if there's not fishing in it. He is... It's the same friend in the friend group that they're obsessed with Valheim right now. And that was like one of the stipulations. Is like, can I fish? Sweet, then I'll play. And he'll just sit in the server and fish and go hunting. Like, that's all he'll do.
Like, I have got a fair amount of hourage now, as you saw and as you are seeing, and still, when I go to hunt the monsters, when I go to the locales, when I spend time just existing in the various villages and just natural beauty on display here, I just keep having the, oh yeah, that's a thing, and it's amazing, wow, and I can't put it into words, really. Like, we'll have moments where you haven't hunted a new monster in a while, and you kind of in the back of your mind think, yeah, it was fun, but I don't know, maybe it'll be just kind of a forgotten monster or so in a few generations, just sort of a roster filler, and then you go hunt it, and you watch it do what it does, and you're suddenly like, oh, no, wow, yeah, no, this thing was incredible, wow, okay, what?
He is screaming. He is so excited. He is so excited for this chat.
Wow, and it just keeps happening with every single tiny bit of the game. And the game, ladies and gentlemen, is massive. It is by far and away the biggest low-rank
Shout out Ninja. Massive.
game I have experienced in Monster Hunter, both in the amount of hourage you can spend doing everything there is on offer and the sheer literal size of the world. All the
That's
locales are complex, colossal, beautiful, and detailed. In all the footage you're seeing, we don't have the high-definition texture pack because it wasn't available to us, so it will look even better for you, but still, the amount of time
He pulled the dam down. Dude. They haven't mentioned what platform they're on yet. Did they just say PC? Or the controller says PlayStation, but I don't know if they've mentioned it yet. That was a really sweet slinger mechanic.
Sometimes you will just walk to a place or even mid-hunt, just stop and look at what's in front of you.
That's really cool.
Just feel speechless. The amount of careful craft and passion got into every rock on every map is insane. And that extends to everything. The armor sets and the weapons are all just phenomenal. Some of the best looking stuff I have ever seen in the series. The fact that both male and female hunters can wear everything opens up some incredible fashion endgame potential. What I'm currently wearing is the male Uth Duna chest, and I think you could agree it's one hell of a look. I am a big fan of it.
This guy, dude. This guy is crazy. He's so crazy, and I love it. Oh my god. It does look amazing though. The thing that I like about the beta, at least when we were looking through, I think they had like 4 armor sets in the beta. Is it almost didn't, how do I say this without, we don't do politics or anything because I freaking hate talking about that. It's just boring as hell. Like, get it somewhere else. It's really interesting to me because when I was flipping, I'll speak for myself. When I was flipping through the different armor sets, it was really nice to just have a backup and say, this is really cool, but the gauntlets are super chunky. Like, I don't want gauntlets that chunky, So it was nice to have a backup set and just to, just in case. I feel like that was a really cool addition. I haven't played the full crafting system, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much of a difference there will be in terms of perks and stuff like that. Time will tell. Or if, like they said, when you craft something that's high ranking, you'll unlock the cosmetic for it. I don't know if you unlock the cosmetic of both the male and female versions. I'm not sure. But I guess time will tell.
And that extends to the weapons too.
I haven't heard anybody
No
talk
more
about it.
bits on sticks. Everything is unique and beautiful. And beyond the aesthetic, the actual set building is so good. In practice, the skill split between armor and weapons is really refreshing, and I can't remember ever having a more enjoyable time first getting to endgame and working out initial sets, putting the pieces together, actually building.
Yeah, that's the fun
There's
part.
some meaningful choices to be made here, some gives, some gains, and you actually have some real variety in what you could argue is air quotes best, on top of just lots of fun potential across the skills and how they're set out, on top of set bonuses and so on.
I haven't seen a bunch of footage of this fight in particular. Maybe I haven't watched enough videos, right? But I feel like this area of the map is sweet. This looks, again, there's a small vibrancy issue, but the fight looks well designed, and how the waves interact with the monster, it looks really nice.
It really is a theory crafter's dream, and this is obviously just the start, which is awesome. But I think one of the most impressive things about Wilds is just the actual story, which is kind of crazy to say in a Monster Hunter game. World, Iceborne, Rise, Sunbreak, and to a lesser extent, Monster Hunter 4U all had solid stories, right? A competent enough narrative to get you from hunt to hunt, and it kind of worked. Interspersed with the load to village, load to quest, load back, talk to someone else, load to quest, kind of...
He's right.
Well,
he's totally right.
Doing things. Whereas now, the low rank experience from start to finish is just this seamless, beautifully paced, lovely done narrative interspersed with...
Yeah, and this is what I was talking about earlier, in that as a world player, a hardcore world player, this was enough for me to say, all right, this is where I need to hit, because I just weakened it. I need to go into the focused mode a little bit more when the game launches. I thought it was something people would lean on too much, and things that the OGs would not use. But I think it's an intended mechanic. So I need to be better about that.
Hunts that all combine together to just make this constant journey. You never feel like you have to artificially slow down or have walls, or even as little as the fact at no point do you have to load anything. You just literally move smoothly forward.
That's so cool.
All of the monster introductory cutscenes are breathtaking. All of the characters are so well done. The voice acting, amazing. It's so compelling in a way that I never really thought would be possible in Monster Hunter, where it's
this is so, like, this might be something that they mentioned earlier of like, oh, it's a small thing, and I don't know if many people will understand it. The fact that right here, they've created a custom camera angle just for this animation of them running up this particular wall. Like the fact that they're framing it in almost a Hollywood-esque frame. Like the fact that they're framing it in this way makes me feel like I'm in a movie. This is a great touch. It's really small. It's probably not that big of a deal to a lot of people, but it does keep things exciting. You know, I think this is a really cool thing. I think this is a cool feature. And it makes you visually enjoy looking at the world when they do cool things like this with the camera. I love this stuff. This is really sweet.
Easy to just kind of see the narrative as a vehicle to get you hunting.
That's awesome.
And get you to the end game. Whereas I would
That's
argue
so cool.
that if anyone picked up Wilds with no experience of Monster Hunter, let's say, and just literally played low rank to its conclusion, they would sit back and go, wow, I have just played one of the most compelling RPGs of my life. From gameplay to how the narrative unfolded and was presented, that was impeccable. And it is. And it's so good. And the weather system, the plenty, the fallow, the inclemency, the storms on the desert, the downpour on the forest, how that plays into both the story and then actually the mechanics of the game is wonderful. It is so layered. It could have felt gimmicky, but it's woven so brilliantly into everything that you do and see. It's really quite an achievement on multiple levels.
That's the third time somebody's mentioned, because we talk about how dull the world looks when there's a storm going on. That's my biggest visual gripe about the game right now. I have a list, obviously. It's under my pillow. I update the list every night before I go to bed. This is a spoiler. They have way more access to the game than I do, but it does excite me that they can't say everything, and I'm happy that they're agreeing to the embargoes and continue to agree, because I like the hints that these people drop. It makes me excited about the game. I like that they are not telling me everything, but they're mentioning the weather systems and why things get crazy all of a sudden. Like it's like watching a movie trailer. It gets me excited, man.
Going through it, multiplayer, however, is still a little bit janky. Link parties exist now, and they do make it a lot smoother, but anything story related, which is basically everything that isn't literally hunting from quest start to quest complete, you have to do solo. Link party does make it incredibly smooth to just hop into that hunting part. It's just a single one button auto pop-up, and it eliminates that, okay, abandon my quest, go back to town, join the actual quest I want to do with my friend, load into that quest, run to the monster. It all happens effortlessly, but it still is a little bit of a, oh, I really wish you could just do the full story together, but it is the best it's ever been in Monster Hunter, which is a really, really welcome step forward.
I wrote it down because the past videos we watched had similar things to say. I think that's technically a negative. In terms of things that are at the top of my list, that's not at the top of my list, but that could just be me.
Forward. And to quickly put any performance worries at rest early on, it's been literally flawless for me the entire time. Of course, I have a higher end PC, but everyone else that I've been speaking to has had very similar experiences. There has been the occasional graphical bug, but that's literally it. And at least from personal experience, if the benchmark worked out for you, you're going to have a smooth, lovely time in Wilds. But I really want to get across that just how good Wilds is as a RPG to play, even before talking about how good it is as a Monster Hunter game. And that is a really commendable achievement. You will find some serious twists and turns, and believe me, for those of us like myself that really care and love both Monster Hunter lore and ecology and the world at large and all of that surrounding goodness to the raw hunting, you are in for a treat like no other.
Okay, so he's glazing the game. That's fine. You can glaze the game. I like it. I like the energy. I haven't heard anybody talk about the user interface yet. A little small gripe. When I hide the button, so right now he has the button prompts hidden, right? Which is great. I love hiding the button prompts. I would absolutely love it if this could just get bumped up there top right. That sounds dumb. It sounds like something that maybe I shouldn't gripe about. Everything else just looks so well placed. I would love to, if this switched off, then it, goes to the top. I'd love to see this just kind of bumped up more. Because I don't have an ultra wide monitor. If you do have an ultra wide monitor, I saw gameplay the other day on an ultra wide monitor, and it looked freaking amazing. So have fun with that, guys.
The amount of, they've actually gone there. That's a thing now in Monster Hunter. Okay. I will say no more than that. But
he's freaking out
to the edge of your fucking seats.
He's totally freaking out, dude.
Does not hold back when it comes to narrative punches.
I love my. If you wanted it to be, that would be a good one. I know, dude. I don't know a ton of games. Maybe if I was big into racing games, I would totally see me getting an ultra wide. With that said, again, seeing gameplay of this ultra wide, you could probably look it up on YouTube. This game looked amazing, and I think the primary reason why is it just pushed the UI further away from the monster, and I love that. I wish I could. I like the wider POV. I wish I could zoom out a little bit more from the hunter. Oh, dude, I bet.
And damn, it's punchy.
What the heck was that? Advertisement.
Being punched. Back to the detail in this game. The way that your hunter can get slammed and flopped and hit, the amount of new contextual detailed animations for everything, and not just your hunter, but for your monster. If you're like flashed or stunned on the ground and you break out of it and roll, you do an actual like combat roll sideways now instead of just snapping into the generic.
This fight's gonna be insane. If you know the base monster that this is most likely based off of, I could see people throwing controllers during this fight, especially if there's some like lava drip. If there's any sort of like lava dripping that could damage you over time if you step in it, like this fight could. There might be some broken monitors after this boss fight. I'm just guessing.
Roll. Flying wyverns can have their wings crushed, take to the sky, and have themselves struggle to fly and spiral down like an actual bird with a broken wing. The amount of sheer personality in everything is amazing. Like, we're still seeing new animations after nearly 100 hours. There is so much contextual.
What? That's crazy.
To everything. Like, I don't think I have ever been more contextually aroused playing a video game.
He has to be trolling, right? Oh my gosh. Oh my god.
in my life. It's just so alive. And all of this is before we've actually got to, playing Monster Hunter. This, I feel less like I need to talk on because of the betas. Because a lot of us have played and all of us know just how good Wilds feels. But with the weapon changes and the other
Damn. What? I haven't rewound yet. I'm just gonna. Wow. I didn't quite understand what he was looking at.
Monster Hunter.
What?
This, I feel less like I need to talk on because of the betas. Because a lot of us have played and all of us know just how good Wilds feels. But with the weapon changes and the...
Good lord. Good lord. Good lord. Things like that have existed in other Monster Hunter games. I think it's wow. I think it's a mix of the trigger being a little bit harder to get to, which I like. He tried to grab it a few times and failed. And then the aesthetics of the trap that he triggered. It's like sometimes when you see houses in those house makeover shows and they like have a secret door, like you pull the bookshelf out and there's a room behind it. Like that's kind of what the vibe I like. That was really cool. Whoever designed this part of the map needs a freaking raise. That looks amazing. That's true, Jack. That's an impressive trap.
The other updates, yeah, it is in my opinion that the weapons have never felt better. They are at this perfect point of speed and weight. A little bit smoother and faster than World and Iceborne, but a lot less arcadey and spammy than Rise and Sunbreak. They just work, and they click so well with the pace of the monster for the best that Deadly
What are you
Dance
doing?
has ever been. I am in love with Great Sword more than
What
I've
is he
ever been,
doing?
and I
The
know
monster's
for
right
those of you
there.
that know me, that is quite the sentence to say. Everything else is equally as solid. Cotton has been having the time of its life, rotating through all of the weapons and
Put your
learning
net
their
away.
secrets, clashing.
Put your net away. Put your net away. There's a monster right there. Oh my gosh. He doesn't care.
His offsets, focus mode, focus strikes, it all just works. None of it feels too powerful, none of it feels too weak, none of it feels out of place with what the monsters are doing. The raw moment-to-moment hunting across these massive, open, complex maps is the best it has ever been. The amount of detail in every action the monsters can take is the best it's ever been. That clash of you, your weapon, and the monster and its, air quotes, weapons is at its pinnacle, and it is so satisfying to just hunt. It really is. And you will keep discovering new things, the monster, the environment, and
I love that he just lives in a crater. That's the coolest freaking thing I've ever seen. Like he fell from space or something. That's so cool. Dude, this area looks insane. Welcome to the channel, man. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I was talking a little bit earlier. I want to back up to this trap because I agree with you. The desert area that most people have seen, I think might be the worst looking part of this new map that they created. But in terms of this environment, like this, here we go. This whole interaction, and he's not even on fire yet. I think there's a state where his entire back lights up, right? But watch this interaction with the environment.
all of this is before we've actually got to, playing Monster Hunter. This, I feel less like I...
Because when I first watched this, I'm like, what are they... They don't have any traps on the ground. What are they doing exactly?
Because of
Right? You can set a shock trap or something, but what are they doing?
betas, because a lot of us have played and all of us know just how good Wilds feels. But with the weapon change...
Get wrecked! Get out of here! Get out of here, lava monkey! You want to get hit with a wall of flame and rock? Huh? Is that what you want? We can make it happen. This part of the map is going to be insane. For some reason when I read your chat, Frozone from The Incredibles was in my head. When he's screaming at his wife off camera, "Honey, where's my super suit? Why do you need to know? Where's my Dragonator?" Somebody needs to make a meme about that right now. somebody who's good with a Premiere Pro, please make that. But I agree, man. I won't rewatch that whole thing because he's glazing basically. But this part of the map, it looks really good. This, and then there was that other section. I don't know what it's called, but it's the watery, foresty section where it looks like people are running into that spider with the giant red rose on its back. That part of the map looks amazing too, because of the contrast of the map and the monster. I think that will be the most visually pleasing fight because of the information will be clear without like outlining the monster, right? But I like what I see so far. I'm just kind of looking at reviews and seeing where we have like common negatives and positives everybody's giving it. So I want to see where people are at, because some of them are reviewing it on PlayStation, some of them are reviewing it on PC. So I just kind of want to get a feel for what the big YouTubers are saying.
And you can do and can happen.
Everything okay? I unplugged my headphone. I unplugged my headphones in my fit of rage. I apologize.
And never before has the dynamicness of hunts being on display. Monster Hunter's one of its charms is that the same hunt will never play out the same way twice. That has been turned up to 11 and then some in...
Dude, what? They just disappeared into the smoke? Did you see that?
Monster Hunter's one of its charms is that the same hunt will never play out the same way twice. That has been turned up to 11 and then some in Wild.
That's cool. That's impressive. Wow, that's really cool. I like that touch.
The fact that you can have so many monsters on the maps constantly causing chaos is just so enjoyable. And the actual secret and how it plays into everything is brilliant too. The amount of little pathways and connecting routes you will find on the maps from getting your secret to take you places is just great. You'll find so many nooks and crannies and secrets and caves and treasures to gather and all of it. And it is really, really compelling. And
if I can be honest, I'm not even listening to him anymore. I probably should be. I'm kind of obsessed with this zone in this fight. I want to know more about this.
Even something as simple as the Hunter card has been turned up.
Yes, I heard that, and I'm excited to see what that change is like too.
To beautiful heights. The amount of customization you can do it. I've barely touched mine, and I've just put a little picture of me and Conan at the start of the very first episode, just after Chatacabra, and I think that's just lovely, you know? And it really does represent everything that Wilds is kind of doing. It really is a new breed of Monster Hunter game. But what is a Monster Hunter game without the monsters? I don't think you need me to tell you that this is the best roster in an opening monster.
I'm just making sure there aren't spoilers. Okay, this looks like stuff all from like previews here and then some gameplay later on. Okay.
Monster Hunter game of all time, and it's not even close. The variety is one thing. The introduction of a cephalopod in New Udra is something else, and he is really fighting for my top spot of
Yeah, this guy looks... Again, it's the lava map. Oh my gosh. It looks sweet.
Monsters. But Conan already has 3 of the new Wilds monsters in his top 5. That is how big of an upgrade it is. They have never been more alive or filled with personality, but they've never been more satisfying to hunt with the sheer volume of options they have, both themselves and working with their environments. The apexes really are peak how they fit in to the nature of the world, which again has never been more complex or more detailed. If you are someone that just likes existing in cool environments that feel alive, Wilds will be the best game you have played in your life, and I have every confidence in saying that, and that for me really is some of the best parts about Monster Hunter, so I am of course.
So yeah, a thing to just keep in mind, that like the first 50, I think we were 14 seconds into this video, and he said that it was a masterpiece game. So he at least prefaced it with saying like, everybody should know I really like this game. So when he starts talking about all the positives, maybe I should be listening more, but I'm kind of glazing through it a little bit, kind of shuffling through it, because I can only write down so many positive things. And I'm trying to remain, I love the gaming franchise. I want to get some really honest feedback.
Really chuffed. In any case, though, yes, the monsters themselves are...
Hey, there was a elderly Ed Sheeran. Did you guys, Jack, did you catch that? It's your favorite character.
Really chuffed. In any case, though, yes, the...
Ed, it's Ed. Ed's here.
Monsters themselves are magnificent. When they get introduced, how they get introduced, the surprises that get introduced, they are just some of the best designs I have ever experienced, not just in Monster Hunter,
yeah, he looks sweet,
in gaming. And while, yes, there is high rank, that is all I can say about it at this time, but know that the end game loop is, to me, the most satisfying and largest that there's ever been in a base game, and I am really, really pleased with it. At least that was the case until the recent Play event that actually revealed publicly a lot of said immensely satisfying endgame loop, so I will touch on it slightly. If you don't want any kind of endgamey, surprisey spoilers, and somehow
I don't.
also missed those reveals that went out and were talked about in recent days, well then skip.
I'm gonna skip because I don't really want to know.
Bottom line, guys, there is no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, so this is his mode right here.
I will leave it at that. Bottom line, guys.
Like, look at this. Look at him. Look at this guy. He's also the older version or the younger version. This map, and this is such a, as a person who's never been in game design but has noticed a lot of bad trends as somebody who just enjoys gaming, this is such a good example of how to visually separate your target from the environment without putting an outline around him. This is just brilliant. This monster fits in this environment. The environment's amazing. Parts of this environment are dark. Oh, by the way, now he's on fire. It's such a well-designed monster for this part of the map. I'm excited to fight him. I might break a controller, but I'm excited to fight him.
There is no doubt in my mind that this is the best base Monster Hunter game of all time.
Brilliant.
Likely the best Monster Hunter game of all time. But even if you completely take out the Monster Hunter, this is one of the best RPG experiences of all time.
Noted, Jack.
And that's the first time I can properly say that about Monster Hunter, and that is so impressive to me. I don't think you needed me to tell you how good this is, but it is good. And more than anything, it's just fun. I fell in love.
I will say that's really all that matters. It's really good if you're a hardcore player. I kind of don't want that type of a game. I want to be able to talk to chat while I play it. Maybe there's moments when, or I don't know, MrRageless when she comes in, or if I'm on Discord with my buddies. Like there's games that, like, there's a space for that. Now, if you're going to try to 1v1 Fatalis in World for the first time, maybe you aren't talking with your boys on Discord, right? So there's moments, but I like the fact that he said the game's fun, because I think that's what most people just care about. If they're going to take 2 hours, 3 hours out of their day, I would like to enjoy it. I don't want to be banging my private part up against the wall for 5 hours to then realize, oh, I'm only at the halfway point in the fight. I'm just like, I don't want that right now. Oh. Sometimes you want that, sometimes you don't. If you know, you know.
Love with Monster Hunter over 20 years ago, and I have just fallen in love with it again. It is special, it is beautiful, it is going to devour thousands of hours of my life, and I say that with just the biggest grin on my face, guys.
1,000.
Wilds is it. Oh. That said, I would be remiss to not talk about a couple of the things that do kinda...
Finally. Here we go.
So, this is going to
Here
come
we go.
across as really petty, but it might actually give you at least some kind of scope of the level of negatives that I have here when this is one of the ones that I'm leading with.
Here we go.
You can't display endemic life anywhere, which is really sad because it's never been better and it's satisfying to capture them all even so, but you can't show them off.
Got it. In Monster Hunter World, you could pull out your net, and if there was a flying, if there was one of the jellyfish characters in the world, you could net it, and then you could actually display it in your personal room. In an Iceborne, you had a huge room, right? So you could capture things, you could get achievements, you could get little, you could turn in quests and earn a piece of art to hang on your wall. There's a lot of really cool things you could do in World, in Iceborne in particular, including show off the things that you captured. So I see where he's coming from. I don't know how big of a gripe that is, but I could see people, people like displaying their trophies. They're kind of like serial killers. That's basically what we are. But it's just, instead of people, it's monsters, right? So I kind of get what he's saying. I'm watching Dexter right now. I'm rewatching it, so I apologize for the serial killer reference. It's just, that was such a weird reference. I apologize. But I get what he's saying. Trophies are important.
So that's a bit sad, isn't it? All right, now let's talk about perhaps the biggest deal for me, and that's simply the difficulty of the game. If you managed to kill Arkfeld in the beta, you have already completed the hardest challenge, at least in my opinion, that Monster Hunter Wilds can offer.
I've not heard it put like that before. Nobody's actually made a connection. He's not the first person to say that it's too easy. I'll mark that on the board. We have 2 votes for that. The hardest thing about Arkfeld... Dude, I'm at the point... Don't spoil anything. I'm at the point where... Where am I in Dexter? A little 30-second shift. I am at the season where... How do I put this? Dexter is in a church and Deb walks in on him. Is that a good way to describe it? I just finished that season. And Deb is the lieutenant or whatever. She's the new head honcho. And then something about a Ukrainian or Russian mobster in a strip club. I don't know. This video is now demonetized, so thanks a lot, Jack. But anyways, that's where I'm at right now. I said way too many buzzwords. Too many negative buzzwords. Now I'm going to get my channel stroked. I don't know English.
And that might be quite the sad blow to hear. That said, this is impossible for me to give fair criticism on because I have put so much time into Monster Hunter and I would like to think, I'm all right at it. But it's not been the most demanding cart-filled experience so far. And I think that might be a little bit of a shame for true veterans. I think newer players or less experienced players will have plenty of pain and punishment, but if you are a veteran looking to really get kind of pummeled, I think you might not find it until we get some updates or an eventual master rank and so on.
I think the reason why people are saying this too is expectation setting, in my opinion. Again, a big boss fight game that's extremely popular, that a lot of people played in Europe and America, is Elden Ring. That game's punishing almost regardless of how long you've played Dark Souls, right? There's definitely crossover, but you play those games because they're challenging. And the positive spin I would have on this critique is just that Monster Hunter is reminding people that, hey, our game is not that. You know, we have boss fights. We enjoy throwing a couple monsters where you feel like you should probably be on a team to fight it, right? You could do it solo, but you'd have to be really good, right? I think a lot of these criticisms is expectation setting for anybody that hasn't played it before, who thinks it's going to be extremely hard. They're not saying the game's easy. They're admitting that if you're a really good Monster Hunter and you've played previous games, there's going to be patterns that you pick up very quickly, and you'll probably breeze through the campaign. I think that that's a fair argument. I don't think I'm too worried about it. I don't know how you guys feel, but Jack, hold it in, buddy. But yeah, I just thought it was crazy. I'm gonna read that chat out loud if that's okay. I think that's an interesting point. World was my first Monster Hunter game. This is over in Twitch chat. World was my first Monster Hunter game, so I didn't notice it, but people are saying the exact same thing happened in World with the difficulty. The base game was easy, and then title updates and Iceborne. Iceborne was a huge leap, by the way. People forget that. That's a good point. Iceborne was a very big leap in difficulty. I think too, and I kind of said that earlier, but I think people are forgetting that you have people right now that got early access versions of the game. Take their word over mine. But with that said, when I hear people comparing this to World, I'm not sure what they mean by it. Do they mean they're comparing this game to World and Iceborne? Because if that's the case, that's like a year and a half worth of... That's really like comparing it to two games. It's technically one game with one DLC. But Iceborne was such a dramatic leap that it would be like saying, man... like Pokemon White was okay, but it's not as good as if you put Pokemon Blue and Pokemon Gold together. And it's like, well, duh. There weren't as many Pokemon. It's like, well, yeah, yes. We know, yes. we know that. Like, that's, I almost wonder, I think the more interesting conversation will be had once we get I think they're doing smaller DLCs. Feel free to tell me I'm wrong in the comments. But it'll be interesting to see how well this competes with Monster Hunter World / Iceborne after it's past that like 1 year mark or even year and a half mark. Because that's kind of how long it took for people to really, like, if you're a casual player of Monster Hunter, you would pick it up every now and then. And I doubt that you soloed Fatalis quickly. You know? There's parts of that game where, especially if you're shy and you don't want to get online and play with people, like if you want to try to solo Fatalis, it is not easy. Especially if you don't look up build guides or, you know, tips and tricks on how to beat Fatalis, things like that. I could see people struggling. So I don't know how much, I guess long story short would be, I don't know how much weight to give these types of feedback because of how much content there is in Monster Hunter World / Iceborne. I almost think it's not a fair comparison. But we'll see. We'll see. I know. Hot take. I kind of like the Clutch Claw. I know it's kind of dumb. I did hate the mechanic I hated the most was when it got tired. And in order to extend its tired state, you had to clutch it in the face and jump down. That in particular I thought was kind of dumb. I wish it would just be an extended period where they're huffing and puffing and you can wail away at it. But I liked punching him in the face and then shooting him into a wall. I thought that was kind of fun. Maybe I'm alone. Maybe I'll get a bunch of hate for that. But I thought that was a really fun part of World. I kind of enjoyed that. But feel free to hate me. Feel free to hate me. MrRageless loves me, so I don't really care, guys.
Another thing is there's no layered weapons, which I think is a huge mistake and a miss, for a reason that I can't really say too much on, because it gets a little bit too close to spoileries, but it really would have helped with...
Cassis Bellas on YouTube, thank you so much for that sub. Thank you for the sub, for the follow. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'll move the alert box up a tiny bit. I didn't realize it was getting cut off. I apologize. Thank you for the follow. Thank you for the sub.
Let's say variety, especially with how cool the weapon designs actually are, and there's so many you'd want to use. After that, how do I put this in a way that's as light on spoilers as possible? And of course, heads up warning and all of that. There is a...
I'm going to skip this. I'm going to skip like 10 seconds. I really don't want to get spoiled a bunch of crazy stuff.
Bit of a negative upset once people experience it and understand what I'm talking about. But that really is...
I skipped it perfectly. You're welcome, guys. Is it a beautiful house? Dude, I always... You followed me in both places? For some reason, I apologize, Bellis. Your name on my chat is black. So I didn't realize it was the exact same name. So thank you for the follows in both places. I appreciate it.
Is kind of it. So, I mean, yeah, not bad at all. There is a lot I want to talk about that I can't and indeed won't.
Then don't talk about it.
Preserving your experience in this is paramount to me because you...
Guys, this reminds me, I hope this isn't too much information. Whenever my dad, I love him to death, okay, Papa Rageless, he's a great man, a very gentle guy. I honestly love my dad. But whenever he's about to tell me about a show he just watched or a movie he just watched, and then he starts explaining it, I know he's spoiling something. And then Grandma Rageless has to slap him on the shoulder and say, Papa Rageless, whack, don't say that. He goes, it doesn't give my, oh, well, you'll just have to see it. Like, that's just like, Dad. Oh. I was like, just text me a link to a preview video or something. Please don't tell me. I feel like the end of this video, it just reminds me of my dad. Like, I don't want to get into spoilers too much, but your character's gonna die and you're gonna have to start all over. And surprise, you're actually playing Grand Theft Auto. It's the GTA 6 demo, and they hit it within another game. Like, it's something weird like that. I'm just like, just don't tell me then. Just don't tell me. Please don't tell me. I'm fine. Sorry. I'm airing my family's the Rageless dirty laundry.
You can only play Wilds for the first time once, and it really is that good. So with that all said, let me know what you're thinking, your thoughts. I'll answer any questions I can down below, and I hope you enjoyed this and look forward to all of the Wilds content that's on the way. For now then, like if you've enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more. Consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
I just put the link to this video in the chat. Feel free to give him a like, or no links in chat. Ha! It's my chat. I just want to give people credit, you know. They put a lot of time into it. They built their channel up for years trying to just get access to it. So here's the thing, guys. It is we're 2 hours in, and I kind of like watching these, and we have one more, but it might be the longest one. It's the last one, though. And this is somebody who you should also follow on X, formerly known as Twitter. It's like Prince or something. Hashtag ads. Yeah, I don't pay for YouTube Premium. There's too many like monthly subscriptions. I really like this guy's takes. I think he's a really solid guy, so I'm gonna watch it. If there's anything in this video that's spoiler, if there's anything in this video that says like, how do you play Monster Hunter? I'm probably gonna skip that too, because I think we all understand what Monster Hunter is, and if you want to know, you can rewind the video later. I just want to make sure I give him credit, so let me put him up on the screen. The wind is blowing. I swear I'm not in tornado territory, but my power might go out. All right. Yeah, I don't want to gossip. I'm just seeing that now. I don't want to gossip, okay? You know I don't like that. But did you hear? They clutch their, oh my god, did you hear what she said? Did you hear that? Did you? Like, did you guys hear that? It's like, lady, I'm trying to pick up my coffee, okay? It is 6 in the goddamn morning, and I'm here for my Joe. So put the cup down on the table. Stop talking about your crappy boyfriend. I need to get to work. I just blacked out for a second. I apologize. Let's get to the video. His source, his name's on the screen. I love this guy on X, formerly known as Twitter. Let's get into it. Let's see what he's saying. I'm keeping a tally. If you guys are in, if you guys are new, we're almost done. But we're keeping a tally of positives and negatives and giving little check marks next to each one if there's any overlap. I really want to get a sense of what game reviewers and the Monster Hunter community are saying about the game. And at the end, which will be in just a few minutes, we will go over this list and we'll rate the importance, the unimportance, and you guys can tell me what you think is a big deal. Feel free to tell me what's wrong. Just, you cannot criticize my sweater. That's the only rule. It's an instant ban. Okay, let's get into it. Ma'am, this is an oncology ward. Oh. Ma'am, I had a friend, last story. I had a friend, a family friend. Her husband, a really good friend. Her significant other said, listen, honey, I need you to go get the oil changed when you get there, okay? They're going to try to sell you everything. Don't buy it. You don't need it. You don't need it. They're going to try to sell you on things. Just say, listen, I'm here for an oil change, give me the most basic version, and then I'm out. They're going to get you upgrades. I mean, you guys know what we're talking about, right? She pulls up and the guy goes, hey, how are you doing? Oh, good. How are you? Maybe I should turn. So what's going on? What can we help you with? Well, yeah, I need my oil changed. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Is there anything with your windshield that looks a little chipped up? Do you want us to fix that for you? No, I'd like my oil changed. Okay, so there's nothing wrong. You don't need new wiper blades. There's nothing wrong with your windshield. Listen, my husband told me you would do this, and I'm here for an oil change. So do not upsell me anything. Please give me the oil, I'll pay you, and then I'll leave. I don't want to have to call my husband. And I swear to God, the guy goes, I understand that, ma'am, but you're at a speedy class. That is not a made-up story. She drives to a speedy glass and proverbially points a gun at the guy and says, change my oil. Don't touch my windshield. It's like, okay. This is the same, and I love her to death, but it's the same person where we were at dinner, and we're at the place with the big red bird that serves burgers in America. And the mascot comes out to sing happy birthday. And she looks at the mascot and she goes, wonder what kind of bird that is. And my dad goes, probably a red robin. I'm reliving that moment in my head. Well, it's probably a red robin. It's like, yeah. You'd be right, actually. Oh my gosh. Dude, aggressive as F. Absolutely. Okay, last one. Let's get it. I'm starting to lose my mind. Need to get hyped. Should we stand up for this one, guys? Let's stand up. Peter, can we have a little piano music as we stand up? That would be greatly appreciated. Yeah. Dang. Thank you, Peter. I appreciate that, man. All right. I forgot to mute my mic. I apologize. Hopefully that wasn't like too rumbly sounding. I don't know what that sounded like for you guys, but I apologize. She's the nicest lady ever, and she's beautiful and has a really big heart. That's how. She's like one of the nicest ladies I've ever met. She just has little slip-ups every now and then. I heard nothing. Oh, perfect. I love that. Okay, so I'm going to skip through this. Like, what is Monster Hunter? You guys can't see my cursor bottom left. Oh, sweet. He starts with the critiques. Let's do that. Let's do that right now.
Generation title when it comes to the Monster Hunter franchise. Now, whenever there's a generational leap, it's kind of a big deal because there are going to be things that are going to be different from previous versions of Monster Hunter. And so, in this case, when it comes to Monster Hunter Wilds, the main differences from what you would have experienced in a previous title, like, say, Monster Hunter World, would be there is a bigger focus on the narrative during the campaign. And I know that for some veterans of the series, you might be thinking like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that because, you know, I like the whole thing about hunting, right? But
if you guys can't tell, he really likes Monster Hunter. I don't know if you guys can tell that. But he's really fun. He's really good to follow on Twitter. He actually does a great job of like shouting out people that create like intense like spreadsheet guides in case you're into that type of thing on Monster Hunter. His background's great. That's all. I love it's so great, dude. I love the hat. I love everything.
But once you are done with the campaign, things kind of like revert back to what you expect from Monster Hunter. You're going around hunting monsters, collecting their gear, making your sets, doing all of that stuff. Having said that, at any point during the campaign, you can kind of just like put the brakes and go like, hey, I feel like going to grind now, and then you can go and you can grind, you can go smell the roses, you can go gather stuff, you can do whatever you want. Another thing that I would consider to be one of the main differences in Monster Hunter Wilds is that there is a much bigger focus on the world and in immersion, making things kind of like seamless, like you just go from your town hub or the village or whatever it is that you happen to be and you go into the hunting field and you go hunt monsters and it's...
Yeah, the last video we just watched, one of his critiques was there's no gathering hub like in World. I like what he said, which is it's just seamless. Like, yes, there's no that we've seen so far. Like, here's the distinct fenced-in area where you see other people. But I liked what they did. I thought it was nice. I liked what I saw in the beta.
All seamless. There's no loading screens. None of that. Now, when you actually get a little bit further ahead in the game, you are eventually going to be hopping from different locale to different locale, and that will involve loading screens. But, you know, the whole game feels like it has a much more natural flow to it. Now, when it comes to the hunting action, it is still phenomenal, and I personally absolutely love the game, which shouldn't really be a surprise. I tend to really just enjoy all Monster Hunter games. It's kind of like my thing. So, yeah, I love it. To continue down this intro, I figured let's go ahead and just instantly talk about some of the main criticisms that I had for the game. And one of the biggest ones is that I expected the monster roster to be bigger. Another one is that I feel like performance is still not where it needs to be, and I'm hoping...
Okay. I'm assuming he played on PC. That's the second time we've heard that, but let's listen.
To see some improvements, but then again, we still don't have stuff like updated drivers for some of the GPUs and all of that stuff, because as I'm recording this video, we're still in the review period, so those have not come out. I'm hoping that some more optimization will happen before the actual release, but this is what I have to work with right now. The other thing is I still wanted more challenge, but then again, at the end of the day, being a veteran, I'm always going to want more challenge.
He has so much time in Monster Hunter. He runs Lance. I think he runs Gun Lance. So he doesn't even like roll out of the way. That's what you need to understand about his playstyle. He is a wall with a big boomstick. And if you get in the way of his boomstick, he's going to boom you. He knows this game very well. But I get what he's saying. He wants a challenge, and I think he should be allowed to have one, to be honest. I've heard this so much. I almost wondered, too, if and people won't like that I say this, maybe. There's a lot of weapons for a reason. I almost wonder if the best way to challenge ourselves, if you're a veteran Monster Hunter and you're watching this, or... man, if you ever see this, react to your video. I love you. I almost wonder if they're trying to channel people to use more weapons. I see swapping to a weapon you haven't really used that much. I would see that as the greatest way to change the difficulty in this game based on the things that I've seen so far. And I think I kind of like that. Is it forcing you to use other weapons? Yeah, if you want more experiences. Maybe that's not the greatest form of I don't know what you call it. Because people of game design, if game design the right word, chat, I don't know. Like, people like to have choices, but I do feel like, and people, one more preface. People do identify with the weapon that they choose. It's kind of like a Pokemon. You're picking a weapon, the one that's right for you. You learn over time, and you kind of bond with it in a weird way. So I understand that. But again, I think it would be interesting if Capcom were to come out and say, I'm not going to put words in their mouth. I'll put words in my own mouth, because it's my mouth. And I can do whatever I want with my mouth. Pause. I think people that are really into this game, and I will be one of them, the way I'm going to get the biggest challenge is by trying to pick up the hunting horn, for example. And I kind of think that that's okay. Especially with the vanilla version of the game. There's no DLC yet. There's again, we just talked about it. There's no Iceborne. There's no Iceborne yet, which to Wilds. Like, it's just the world part, right? I could foresee the best way to increase your own difficulty if you're breezing through it is don't use the weapon that you used in World. Don't use the weapon that you used in Rise. Pick something totally different and see how the game feels. Because we might feel differently.
Challenge, but I will say I did get one of my wishes, which, if you guys remember, I said multiple times, man, I wish I would cart in low rank, and I did. So
okay,
that made me pretty happy. So now let's...
If you're new, carting means that not that necessarily you fail the mission, but they send you back to camp. Like, you use health and you have to go back to camp and then make your way back to the monster.
Talk about things in a little bit more detail. Usually I like to start by talking about visuals. In my opinion, I think that the visuals of the game are very good, assuming that you have a good enough rig to run them. The version of the game that I've played is the PC version.
My tie on straight?
Specifics about my hardware and all of that stuff. But I know there's going to be people here that are from
Hot
the
in here?
PlayStation 5 side of things. I did do a preview event where I played on a PlayStation 5 in performance mode. If you guys check out my preview footage, there's like gameplay for 3 of the monster hunts. That'll give you an idea of what to expect for performance for the PlayStation 5. I'm assuming that, considering that the version that I played there was a version for the preview event, things can only get better.
Like, the lighting looks not great, but for it being on PS5 performance, I feel like it looks pretty good. If I was a PS5 player, I think I'd be pretty happy with that. I debated whether or not I should react to these in real time or if I should do it on my own and release something on YouTube. Yeah. I haven't decided. Maybe next time I'll make a different decision.
Better from there. That would be my expectation, but like I said, I haven't played the PlayStation version of the game. I haven't played the Xbox version. I've just played the PC version.
PC version.
In terms
okay.
of visuals, in my rig, the game is running like super smooth. The visuals look absolutely fantastic, except in one very specific type of content, which is during dialogue scenes. Now, when I
like cutscenes, guys, don't king up on me. Come on, I didn't know what else to say. Okay, cut me some slack. So does he mean cutscenes or does he mean like in-game dialogue where the camera is just kind of
when I played the game, I've
what is he
been
talking
playing
about?
with FSR3 because I have an AMD 7900 XTX, and I'm playing with
Wow.
FSR3 set to quality, so I am using upscaling as well as frame generation. I'll talk more about that in the performance section, but just to give you guys an idea of the settings that I'm running and all that stuff, I have everything maxed out, but
Okay.
FSR3, upscaling, and frame generation. And so during
I was bumping some stuff down, to be honest, and I felt like the game was okay. Like volumetric fog. Nope. Sky quality down. I didn't even know the difference. So we'll dig into it post-launch, but for now, like stuff like that, I definitely turned down.
During these dialogue scenes the game has, which the game has cinematics, but then it also has these dialogue scenes where you're interacting with other characters and you get to like select little bits of dialogue and there's a conversation between the two characters, which is different from a standard cinematic, which is better animated.
Got it.
Stuff is happening and all that. During these dialogue scenes, I felt
Got it. So in-game, not cutscene dialogue. Okay. I get what he's saying.
like the detail on my armor was not as good as I would have liked, so that's a little bit of a ding there when it comes to the visuals, but that is being a little nitpicky, I will admit. Now, I've also been informed by the team that there is a 4K texture pack that is going to be released on the actual release of the game. So during the review period, we did not have access to this 4K texture pack, so I'll have to see how things improve on that end once that actually releases, and I'm going to be streaming the game, so you can come and check it out if you want to know my opinion about it at that point.
Wow.
Now, not everybody will notice this because I did do a podcast with Cowboy, which will probably be going live tomorrow. He didn't notice it as much as I did, but that could be due to the fact that he is running the game on an NVIDIA GPU, and DLSS is superior to FSR3, as I'm sure most people will be aware. So therefore, he was playing in DLSS quality, I think. So therefore, things might have looked better to him, but in me, I noticed the little thing about the armor. Now, beyond that, cinematic.
His mic is super crispy. I don't know if it's the new earbud system I got going right now, but I like his mic setup, whatever it is.
And the performance of the characters are absolutely fantastic. I love them. Animation, as per usual, whenever it comes to the Monster Hunter team,
Absolutely.
they are the best in the business
Absolutely.
as far as I'm concerned, both from a cinematic standpoint as well as a gameplay standpoint.
And a
always love
style.
their animation work. They do
Their style is
fantastic
spot
stuff.
on.
In terms of sounds, they've done a fantastic job. I love the sound of all of the combat impacts. I mostly use the gun lance, as you can imagine, and I love the sound of the big explosions, the sound of wounds popping up. You can usually even tell when a wound is about to come up if you pay close attention to the sound, which is always a good thing. I also love, obviously, monster roars, the sounds of their attacks. Everything sounds absolutely fantastic. But one of the big standouts is obviously the soundtrack. The soundtrack is just phenomenal this time.
I agree.
From the action tracks themselves, when you are fighting the monsters, they feel really good, really tense, fantastic. And when you're in town, it's just so chill. I love the sounds that they put in the music when you're in town is just so good. I absolutely love it. I mean, there were other previews I was watching for other games that have come out recently, and they're trying to get this point across of chillness or approachability, and the music they pick is so unserious. And I don't know if low quality is the right term, but it makes me wonder what happened to good orchestration. And I would agree with him based on what I saw in the beta is even when they're trying to get the point across that like you're in a safe area, you're with friends,
like the soundtrack would fit with other classical music, which I think needs to be the case, especially for a game like this. I think their approach to the orchestration and the production is spot on. It would be really cool if they went slightly into the Dune, like the movie. Sorry, it would be cool if they went slightly into the Dune area. Maybe they will near the end of the game. I'd love to see Monster Hunter at some point move into that realm of using the natural and unnatural together in ambient ways. That's just me nerding out about music for 5 seconds, but I'm trying to figure that out. That's a good question about his accent. I'm not entirely sure.
There's a reason I even have like a playlist of some of the tunes that we picked up in the beta and stuff like
A playlist that we picked up in the beta. That's a great question.
that. I have that in the channel because I just enjoy all of that so much. In terms of voice acting, I feel that the voice acting is solid. However, I do have a little bit of a criticism, and once again, we go back to those dialogue.
I don't know. I'm afraid to guess. There's definitely something in there. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Scenes that I mentioned earlier, and that is that during those dialogue scenes, I feel like there are some pauses, which I'm not sure if that was made because of localization, because maybe in Japanese it takes them a little bit longer to say the stuff.
I can see
there
that.
are some pauses that make the conversation not feel as organic, which sounds very different from the rest of the game. So the delivery and the performance of the actors is solid, but the pacing of the dialogue gets a little bit weird from time to time. Now,
Okay.
you can press like a button when you're done listening to the dialogue, and you press like on X and it moves on to the next dialogue, but that also causes animation skips in the characters, and it's a little bit weird. I feel like that is a point where they could tighten up a couple of things, but then again, this is something that the Monster Hunter team...
Is he trying to take my look? Does he have a zip up? The heck, man? He's trying to steal my.
hasn't
He's trying
really
to steal my
tackled
thing.
before, other than I think the Witcher quest line that they've done for the Witcher collab in Monster Hunter World.
Oh
There
yeah.
really aren't a lot of scenes where you're going like through dialogue menus and getting additional information, and there's a lot of that here. And I love those dialogue scenes because the fact that you do get additional context into the game, which is optional. You don't have to like, oh, let me go through all of the dialogue options. I do because I like that. But I
Yeah.
understand there is usually an option that you can just pick if you're like, oh, I just want to keep going. You pick that option, they just, they keep going. But I love the fact that they're giving you this extra dialogue stuff because it gives you more lore stuff about Monster Hunter. And obviously, I think that historians are going to love that aspect of it.
Yeah. Again, last time I'll bring this up, but I think it is important. I love that the character model mouths move in English. World was overdubbed, so the fact that they're making these changes, I could see what he's saying about the pacing of the animation. But I think I would rather take the characters looking like they're talking in my language than perfecting the pacing of the scenes. If I were to pick one over the other, I'm sure that's really hard to balance, but I at the same time I see where he's coming from.
So now let's get into the performance side of things, and this is actually one of the more negative aspects of the game. Now, the game definitely runs better than it did in the beta, which is one of the concerns that the community had. I remember when the beta initially came out, everybody was like, oh my god, this is actually the final performance that we're getting. There's going to be no improvements whatsoever. And no, I would say that the final game runs significantly better than the beta.
Okay.
But in my view, it still needs improvement. Now, there's a
Okay. I put it down as a negative. Don't worry, guys. We'll talk about
limited
it.
pool of hardware that I can pull from, and one of the rigs that I wanted to run was my Rathalos rig, which runs like a 2060. It's a super low-end rig, my super old rig. But if you guys remember, I recently replaced that with another computer, and turns out I did it just in time because I've been trying to boot that rig for the last 4 days without success. It's not like I'm sitting there trying to figure it out. I know what the problem is. It's got like a problem in the motherboard and whatnot, and anyway, I don't want to get into
Yikes.
that. Let's just say I wasn't able to test on the 2060
Yikes.
like I wanted to. Now, on the 7900 XTX, the game runs silky smooth, no issues. Like I said, I am using upscaling and frame generation.
Dude, that's basically my setup. I don't have the XTX. but that's basically the card I have. And they're framed. I love AMD's frame gen. I know there's some drama around frame regeneration. I would much prefer better frames off the bat too. I totally agree. But I've used it on a couple games and it's pretty smooth.
Which is not something that I'm happy about. So like I said, in my opinion, performance still not there. I would like to see further performance improvements. But having said that, FSR3 set to quality, frame generation, silky smooth, 4K, 7900 XTX. Now on the 6900 XT, which is another GPU that I have access to, I was also able to run the game in both these cases, I'm running above 100 FPS in most situations. And on the 6900 XT, I was running FSR3, but rather than running it on quality, I was running it on balanced, and I lowered the shadows a little bit, lowered a couple of settings, tweaked instead of having everything maxed out.
Okay.
And I was also getting really good performance, which was surprising because usually Team Red are the ones that are getting shafted in terms of, issues.
Yeah, AMD. Yeah, I totally agree what he's saying. That's okay. I'm just such a big stickler about 120. This might be something I need to revisit, guys. I'm not ready to talk about it right now, but I just prefer 120 FPS gameplay. It's really hard to go back to 60 after you've played at 120. It's almost impossible for me. So I'd rather take more frames than like a 4K resolution, but that's just me.
And performance.
I like the frames. I like the info.
Stuff, but on my end, things have been fairly smooth, which is interesting because in the discussion that I had with Cowboy, he was telling me like he experienced some crashes related to frame gen and like some crazy mesh bleeding or whatever, where the monster mesh just stretches out all over the place. I was like, no crashes on my 55 hours, no crazy bugs, nothing like that happened to me. So I was like, I'm looking good. So I also tested this on my other computer, which is running an Intel Arc B580. Yeah, that's rough. I was getting, I think, like 40 FPS or something like that, and usually going down into like 35. Trying to run, I think I was trying to run 1080p at high-ish settings, but it didn't seem like there was a massive change as I was fiddling with the settings. So I think that in that case, in that specific GPU, that is just something that either Intel needs to come out with some better drivers, or I don't know, more optimization needs to be done specifically for the Intel GPU, because the Arc B580 was struggling. But then again, I didn't buy that GPU to play games. I bought that to encode AV1, and for that it's working fine. But that's my view on performance. I know that this is going to be a hot button topic in the community. It's like, look, my advice to you is run the benchmark tool. That is likely going to be the closest thing that you have to test it. Pay particular attention to the scene where you're out in the field and.
Thanks for the follow, man. Yeah, I can't get the notifications to work on that platform. I apologize, but thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate it.
Especially the open field, it's actual gameplay instead
of
cinematics. Thank you. And that is the performance that you can expect when you are out there hunting monsters. And if it seems to you like that is not acceptable, then you should probably hold.
Oh, absolutely, man. Thank you so much.
That's my view on the performance side of things. Now, let's talk a little bit about the story. I'm not going to get into any spoilers on this review.
I kind of don't want to. I'm going to skip through this. I hope that's okay. We've the other two videos went over that. I think that's fine. I do want to hear his feedback on gameplay. Let's skip to that.
The first thing that I have to say is that the structure of the game feels very different from previous Monster Hunter games, because and this is the biggest change that we have in Monster Hunter Wilds. Both the story quests and the hunts, they kind of like float together in a very organic way. If you think about Monster Hunter games, the gameplay loop has always kind of been, you prepare, you eat, you hunt, and then you repeat. And somewhere in the middle of there, you're also going to be crafting your sets and doing all of that stuff. But that's kind of like the gameplay loop, right? You do your preparation in town, you get like your consumables in order. Okay, I'm good. You eat your canteen meal, then you go on a hunt, and then you keep repeating this. Unless you're doing guiding lands, then you're kind of like staying there for a little bit longer and you keep hunting and doing all of that. But the essential experience of Monster Hunter.
Jack, thanks so much, man. Have a good night. Have a good night. Thanks for the clip too. I'm sure I'll appreciate that later. Have a good night, man. Thank you.
It's always been kind of like that. Now it's very.
I'll see you on Wednesday.
You're just flowing through the story, and you're just like going from cinematic to hunt to NPC interaction to maybe dialogue interaction to another hunt to another cinematic, and everything just kind of flows like a more traditional action adventure game. I would say that's kind of like the overall vibe that the team seems to start going. There's even.
I think I like that. I like that they'll change a few things up. Like I'm not, because the crafting will still be there. There's still going to be items you go after. There's still going to be sets that you chase. So I think that this is fine. It's fine.
Even several sections
My
where
opinion.
you're straight up just mounted on Sacred and it's on rails. And they do allow you to do a little bit of gathering with the slinger while you're doing these sections. So you can be like, oh, a mushroom, while stuff is happening and dialogue is happening and you're talking to Alma or some other NPC. You're like, doing your investigation stuff. But you're basically on Sacred and it's a little bit on rails.
Okay.
These don't really overstay their welcome. Like, there's a lot of games where they do overstay their welcome. And I do feel that for the people that usually like to zoom through the game, they might feel that way. But I felt that the pacing was pretty reasonable in terms of, here's a little bit of section where you're talking with the NPCs, learning about this particular area, doing these things. And while you're doing that, you're like, oh, a mushroom. Oh, honey. Oh, this thing. And you're collecting stuff. But it does get frustrating sometimes because, like, I would see a mining node and I was like, oh, can I dismount real quick? The mining node, dude, it's staying back. No. So that did happen from time to time, but
ooh, that's such a good comment. Ooh, piece of candy. Exactly. That's what this game, Monster Hunter, does that so well too. They do such a good job of just the enticing with the small things. They've always done a good job with that.
It's not like there's a million of these things that are going to be happening, right? Now, I know that at this point, there's going to be a lot of people that are also going to be curious, okay, but how does it work in multiplayer? Do we have to do the thing that we did in World where somebody goes in the quest and then they see the cutscene, then they do an SOS and all? No, it's not like that, but it's also not seamless. So I tested this with Cowboy actually earlier today because I didn't do any multiplayer up until this point, pretty much. I've just been running around and doing everything in single player and experiencing the game that way. And so I was like, hey, Cowboy, I really want to test this thing. So I was able to wrangle him to come test this with me. And so we both started brand new characters and we go up to like the first quest where you can actually co-op. And what happens is if you're in a link party with somebody else, which is what you want to be doing if you're playing with friends.
Link party is a new thing they added or they streamlined, I guess. So when somebody says link party, what they're talking about is like you won't have to post and then accept something constantly if you're in a party with somebody. So a link party is as soon as they say they're going to start it, it'll show up on your screen, which I think is an improvement. I think that's a good thing.
When you are experiencing the story and you're doing the things that are not hunt related, so like, oh, I'm doing this thing where I'm hanging out with these NPCs and I need to go collect something or I need to do something. While you're in those moments or during cinematics or whatever, you're in your own instance, but you're still in a party with somebody else. And then whenever one of you gets to a point where it's like, okay, I've started a quest, then your character will automatically send an invite to everybody in your link party for that quest. And then they can join you. They can talk to their version of Alma and go like, oh, I want to join this.
Perfect. I love it.
Or there's even like a pop-up that says, hey, this person invited to a quest, and you can just open that and join instantly. And so if you are both at the same progress point, which in our case we were hunting a specific monster that you're supposed to do early in the game, and the quest pops up for both of us, and then I forget if I joined Cowboy or Cowboy joined me, it doesn't matter, because then we hunted that monster and the progress counted to both of us, and then it basically kicked us back to our instance. The party is still active, so we're still in the link party, but we each go back to our instance and we continue experiencing the story. So technically speaking, if you want to do like a full campaign playthrough with a friend from this very just like testing in one monster, I'm assuming that you're able to do that for the whole campaign. It's just whenever you're doing non-hunt things, you're in your instance, and then when you eventually get to a hunt, you know, it sends out invitations to your friends, and so long as you're all on the same progression point of the quest, you can join each other and you can finish the quest. And
this is a little over technical, his explanation of it. The other videos did a slightly better job of explaining it, but I think he's trying to clarify that this is a problem. It's not as seamless as we might think, and I think that that's fair. We'll need to test this out. I'm assuming the reason why it's so complex is because of the crossplay. So the hope would be, and Capcom's won a little bit of my trust and a lot of other consumers' trust, right? Just from the quality of past Monster Hunter games. But I would assume that the crossplay from day one is, you know, it's complicated. So there's not cross progression. So if you have a Steam account, right? That's from my understanding, is there's no cross progression. So if you have a Steam account, you could play on your computer and you could play on your Steam Deck because it's the same cloud file, basically. But if you buy this on Xbox and you buy this on Steam, it's two totally different files. Even if you link your account, I don't think it'll cross over. So it seems like 2 steps forward, 1 step back from the world's multiplayer. But at least they improved on the formula. Yeah. I think ultimately what's hard with shared experiences and story players in the Monster Hunter universe is, based on what we've seen so far in like the primary drops. So not Monster Hunter stories or any of that. But in the primary Monster Hunter games, it's really like you and an assistant that doesn't really do combat in your Palico. Like that's kind of like the three musketeers right there. And there's side characters along the way that you meet. And sometimes mounts, right? I would see it challenging to be like to turn the Monster Hunter storyline into like what you experience in Red Dead Redemption 2 online, right? Where when you go to the Moonshine House, you're all in. Like maybe it is that easy, but again, I could foresee dialogue changes needing to be made if you're in a group versus singular. I could see parts of the story, you know, if it's supposed to be you're the one hunter. There are other hunters in the world, but you're the hunter we need right now in this moment. That feeling could kind of go away if you're in a group. Maybe I'm wrong, but you know, I'm sure there's challenges to it.
That would be what I would expect for that. So still not as seamless as I know a lot of us would like, but a whole lot better than it was with Monster Hunter World. So
that's interesting. That we'll have to see about, because I kind of like Monster Hunter Worlds' approach to it, but we'll see.
It is what it is. Now
the linking's good. I just want to clarify that. But in terms of like story progression, things like that.
When it comes to this change in structure that I talked about earlier in this section, it felt very weird to me at the start, because due to the fact that shields up Ironbreaker.
Okay. I don't really want to listen to story gameplay. Let me fast forward a little bit.
Doing offsets, I'm like, oh, that looks so good, phenomenal, love it. And the whole combat does feel very.
I just heard some things are getting accidentally spoiled, so I'm really trying to be diligent, guys. I apologize for clicking around, but I want to respect everybody's time, and I'm very protective of what I know and what I don't know about this game, so I want to be extra cautious.
Organic because of just how everything flows, how open the world is, all of the traps that are available for you to pull from. Everything just feels fantastic. The roster of monsters, in terms of like the diversity of monsters that you have available to hunt, also feels very good, even if, like I've mentioned earlier, I expected the roster to feature more monsters. That is one of the things that I've mentioned. I'll keep mentioning, I expected there to be more monsters. As I unlocked more locales, another thing that I noticed is that I was changing the way that I play the game. So like in Monster Hunter...
Monster Hunter, there's not enough monsters. That might be a problem. Let's keep watching.
Rise and Sunbreak, obviously you'd be doing optional quests whenever you're farming, because that's the...
It's just weird to hear that after the video where he was like, this is a masterpiece game and I wouldn't change anything about it. It's interesting to hear these two videos back to back.
The only way to properly farm, or you can go on expeditions or whatever, but usually you target monsters through quests, you go to the quest, you do the thing. You can do optional quests in here, but you usually don't want to do that because you can get better rewards by just hunting them out in the open world. So basically going on expeditions, except in here, it's not really considered going on an expedition as much as just like, oh, I'm going to leave the village and go into the world and go hunt something. And usually you want to do that instead of doing the optionals because of the fact that those monsters will give you additional rewards. That is how you end up, at least how I ended up doing most of my hunting as I got progressed further and further into the game.
Got it. So he's saying that the naturally occurring monsters in the open world will yield special results and probably worth more of your time than the side quests that you might run or do for people in the village. Okay. Got it.
Rather than going to an optional quest list, I would just be like, oh, is any of the monsters that I want to hunt available right now?
Yeah.
And you can also advance time. You can use points to like advance time, and you can advance to different seasons. So say, oh, I feel like playing in the Plenty right now. You can advance to Plenty. Oh, I feel like playing in Inclemency right now. You can advance to Inclemency. But it costs you points, you know, guild points.
Nobody has talked about this. What? Not a single video that we've watched today has mentioned this. Why not? What is going on? He's the only one? This is crazy. That seems like something I feel like more people in the community would be talking about, that you can switch seasons with hunter points. I don't think I'm overplaying this. I feel like this is kind of a big deal, isn't it? Like that seems like a pretty big feature to have. Wow. Dude, I just got excited all of a sudden. I just got really excited.
Which is not like a massive amount, like a prohibitive amount. Everybody that I've spoken to is constantly like cycling through it. I purposely haven't done that because I enjoy the immersion of feeling like, oh, I can only hunt these things right now. This is what is available to me. So let me choose from the things that are available and hunt that. And then if the specific thing that I want to hunt is not there, then I'll go and I'll do an optional or whatever. But usually you want to do it this way. And that brings in the new investigation system. So in World, the way that things would work is you would hunt monsters and then eventually you would get investigations for those monsters with additional bonus and rewards and all that stuff. The way that it works in this game, fundamentally every monster that is popping out into the world, you can almost consider that an investigation, except you don't have access to the investigation in your quest log yet, but you can. That is one of the mechanics. So basically the way it works is, let's say you find a monster out into the world, you just see him in the map, and you're like, oh, this one has really good rewards.
You wrong. You dirty dog. How are you doing, man? Over in chat. How are you doing, man? It's good to see you. We're just watching some we're watching the reviews of Monster Hunter Wilds right now. It's good to see you, dude. How are your games going? No frickin' way. You wrong over in Rumble chat. 56k heals in one round in Marvel Rivals. Holy poop. I forgot to tell you, I out-assisted my Team Rocket, my teammate, Team Rocket. I have Pokemon in my brain. Team Rocket. My friendly Rocket on my team. I out-assisted him with Invisible Woman because I figured out how to use her shield. Like, properly. Dude, good for you. Holy crap. Was that competitive? Good for you, dude.
You can just go and you can save that monster as an investigation. That gives you 3 uses of that quest. And then you can still go and you can kill them. So you can get like 4 uses of that quest. So naturally, whenever you see a monster that is like, oh, this one's got really good rewards, then you want to go and you want to save that. Sometimes among the rewards, you can even get things like the rubies or the gems or whatever that monster drops. You can get that as rewards. So it's very useful for you to, like, you know, save some of these investigations, stuff like that. Pretty good. So let's talk about the end game. Is it going to
I kind of like the changes to investigations. I felt like they were kind of like in Monster Hunter Worlds, it was okay. But at a certain point, it's like, why are these just not side quests? Why do they have to be at this totally other vendor? So I understand. I feel like this is a good change. You wrong over in Rumble. You keep winning, but then losing 3, so I can't get ranked. Dude, I need to post a clip. Dude, I finally solo queued my way to GM. Best day of my life. It was so good that I ended stream early. That's how tired like my soul was from being excited. Ooh. I'll have to share that clip.
Imagine low rank is going to be a fairly straightforward experience, as
Good for
it's
you,
just an
man.
introduction to the game and should be viewed kind of like as a campaign tutorial. And it is a very fun campaign tutorial with a lot of really cool set pieces, a lot of really fun hunts. But at the end of the day, are not really meant to be meaningfully challenged during low rank unless you are a newcomer to the series. And if you are a newcomer to the series, I would also like to warn you that there is a credit scene at the end of low rank, but the meat of the game is just after that. As you get into high rank, that is when things really ramp up. There's going to be new monsters.
These are things we know. There's versions of monsters. There's twists to monsters you've seen before. So he's kind of explaining this for new people. Okay.
The hunt, there's still more narrative to develop, and there's going to be a lot of things to chase. So you're going to be hunting new monsters that you haven't seen yet. You're going to be hunting harder versions of monsters that you have already seen. You're going to be doing this to be able to craft the strongest armor sets in the game. That is going to be one of your objectives.
This is the classic, in the best way possible, the classic Monster Hunter formula. Because you get a little in over your head, like, oh, I fought this guy before. And they're like, oh, by the way, he has a move you haven't seen. Or, oh, by the way, this is what Iceborne did so well. He's now like 6. His attack is like, it can one-shot you now because you're not prepped. So be ready for that.
Another objective is going to be to collect some fashion, because this
Dude, it
time
is a
around, the way
grind
that
fest.
things work is as you craft high rank.
You wrong. You have no idea. If I can find the exact date, I'll let you know. But the match, 2 matches before I ranked up, it was like, I actually got mad at somebody on my team. It was not good. I was in a dark place. I was in a dark place. I need to take my own advice and sink into my sweater and keep my heart rate down probably next time.
Versions of armor, you're automatically going to get those added as layered armor, and you can start mix and matching your own favorite fashion in the game. Another
These are things
thing
we
that
all
you're going
know.
to be collecting in the end game is going to be decorations. You're not just going to be collecting them by doing quests. You're also going to be able to meld them at the melder. As Tokuda-san had already mentioned in previous interviews, you're going to be able to meld single skill decorations. So it's going to be easier for you to target some harder to get skills that maybe you never got whenever you were playing through Monster Hunter World. That is going to be something that is going to be addressed. And you're also going to be making weapons from the monsters that you are killing. But naturally, that's not all when it comes to the end game. We're also going to be getting the return of tempered monsters. Now, this is a system that was originally introduced in Monster Hunter World, and tempered monsters consist of stronger versions of existing monsters. They're all...
Okay, I'm going to skip over this a tiny bit.
So, I have a couple of concerns and maybe some...
There's some spoilers in there probably, so I'm going to skip through it.
What could be considered some pieces of feedback.
And not spoilers. I'm not saying like these guys should get in trouble. That's not what I mean. I should probably word that better. There might be things in there that I personally don't want to be exposed to yet, so that's why I'm skipping through it. I don't think these guys did anything wrong. I'm sure they're not breaking any rules set by Capcom or anything like that. I don't want to start any rumors. There's just things I want to explore in the moment with you guys, so I'm saving it.
Which is starting things off, the different seasons, the whole Plenty, Inclemency, and Fallow. I didn't feel that they were super impactful to the hunting experience besides the visual look of the area and the monsters that spawn, because I do know that it affects monster spawns. I'm actually...
Okay, so the seasons that he also revealed, you can pay Monster Hunter points to change, will have a bigger impact than we think on our hunting experiences. I really like that. I like that a lot. That's really cool.
I'm not sure how much I'm even allowed to say about that, because like I said, there are some very big restrictions on embargo, but yeah, they affect the monster spawns, and I think that there's some effect on monster behavior, but because this is a base game, the difficulty is not high enough where that behavior is going to make a difference, unless you happen to be more of a newcomer to the game, because I didn't notice it. Like, I would hunt things in Inclemency, I would hunt things in Fallow, and they would die just as easily in one way or the other. I never noticed too many differences. I asked Gaijin, I asked Fightin' Cowboy. They didn't notice that many differences either.
Wow. That's awesome.
The other thing is, and this actually caused me to go back and look at my reviews of Monster Hunter Rise as well as Monster Hunter Sunbreak, was the whole difficulty. Because you guys know me, I always talk about difficulty, but I wanted to look, okay, how did I feel about difficulty in the previous 2 Monster Hunter releases? And what I've noticed is that, yeah, I didn't find Rise too hard. I didn't find Sunbreak too hard. So at one point, I'm like, maybe I did get significantly better after I did World, which World I would say was probably the one where I felt difficulty.
Dude, we tried to play on stream the other day. We replayed through World, and I honest to God, could not remember the Nergigante fight. I didn't name the monster that, by the way. I did not name the monster that. That's its name. Nergigante. Okay? Just so I'm trying to articulate it extremely well so that nobody gets in trouble. Nergigante is its name. I kind of forgot about the fight because I haven't played through that early in Worlds in a really long time, and it carded me once. Because I was like, oh, I remember this fight, and I was talking to chat, and I was kind of doing stuff, and I was like, whatever. And it carded me once. I was like, oh, shoot, I need to pay attention. Oh, that's right. I need to get these horns completely broken before they turn black. Like, I was starting to get floods of information. There's parts of Worlds where, like, if you're not paying attention, you're going to get punished. And I think that that's kind of fun. There's moments when it's fun.
Because before that, I had played Monster Hunter, but I wasn't like, super grinding, creating content, doing all these things. World was the point at which I really focused a lot more on Monster Hunter, despite the fact that I obviously started in friggin' Freedom Unite back in the day. And
Dang.
World is where I started really developing muscle memory and doing all of these things. And I just feel like probably since then I've only felt difficulty in actual end game of like master ranks and stuff like that. So I didn't feel like the game was too hard. I will, however, say, like I said earlier, I did get my wish. I did card in low rank, and I really appreciated the fact
who carded
that I
him?
Carded in low rank. That made me very,
who
very
carded
happy.
him?
Now, one of the things that
Is he not going to say who carded him? What a tease, dude. He's not going to tell us who carded him? Come on. I want to know. Spill the beans. This dirty little so-and-so.
that I will bring up when it comes to difficulty is that the
I know, what a
Palico
jerk.
this time around is absolutely busted. Palico is so strong, in fact, that I'm considering for my stream playthrough not taking the Palico. Now,
what?
I know that when I say something like this, people are going to start like, so Palico not intended. Not what I'm saying at all. Do not take my words out of context, okay? It's just I want to be more challenged. I haven't made up my mind yet on whether or not I'm going to be using Palico.
Interesting. Okay. So there's something he just brought up that I didn't even think about. Earlier, we talked about how people were complaining about difficulty, right? And my suggestion was if they're hardcore veterans of this game, a creative way to increase difficulty would be to pick a weapon you've never used before, right? I feel like that makes sense. It seems pretty low-hanging fruit, right? His observation's fascinating, which is maybe people in Elden Ring are similar, understand this line of thinking in terms of whether or not to use mimics, but it's just that palicos are so integral to the Monster Hunter experience. His take here is interesting, which is don't bring your palico if you want more of a challenge. I really like this take, and I don't know why, but I think that he might be on the money here. And it doesn't mean we should be, like he just said, you don't put down people that use a palico. Like, your palico's there for a reason. It's a part of the game. You designed him. You named him. You're giving him gear. Like, he's your buddy, right? He's the Scooby-Doo to Shaggy. Like, it's how it works. But this is an interesting take, and I really like his take. I don't think any shade should be thrown his way whatsoever. I like this take.
But I think that you should use palico.
I love his take.
You know, don't turn this into a discussion like friggin' Elden Ring and using spirit summons, please.
I'm just going to do the same. Exactly.
Let's not go down that road again, okay? Palico's in the game. You should use it. I used it throughout my whole first playthrough. I think that for the second one, I want things to be a little bit harder, so I might keep him at base. But the reason why I say that he's so powerful is because oftentimes he will heal you like so fast that you will barely have time to drink a potion. He gets like a ton of tools available to him. I don't know how many of them I'm even allowed to talk about again because of embargo restrictions, but he is very, very, very powerful.
The other thing we heard earlier, if you guys weren't here, is that you don't really have as much control over what your palico brings into a fight in terms of like the abilities. Whereas in World, you could pick like 1 of 5 or 8. I can't remember the exact number. But you would tell it if you want it to be a trap setter or a healer or a buffer, whatever you wanted, right? It had little subcategories. It sounds like from an earlier review that we saw as we're collecting our notes, right, on what the community is thinking about the games, and we'll discuss in chat soon, is you don't have as much control over what your palico does for you. I would consider that a negative. Not the end of the world, but a negative. Pairing that with what he is talking about right here, I don't know how I feel about it. I think his take is accurate. It's just really, it's hard for me to wrap my head around playing a Monster Hunter game without my palico. And it's not to throw shade at anybody, but I just love we all love our palicos. Like, even if you're not a cat person, it's a part of the game. It's like, I hate the fact that right off the bat, little sidetrack, I hate the fact that right off the bat, chat, your palico's speaking English. Did anybody else notice this in the beta? Like, the auto setting, for me at least, when I booted up the game, was that my cat was speaking like perfect English. I'm like, it threw me off. I was like, what? What is he doing? Is this Peter? Are you talking to me? What? Why would they? No, that's not okay. You need to go into your settings as soon as you load up this game, guys. If you're a real Monster Hunter, you'll go to your settings and you'll change your palico to the palico language. They should not be speaking English. No palico of mine is going to be speaking English in this tent, okay? We don't do that here. Ding! We don't do that here, guys. But seriously, I was a little pet peeved that off the bat your guy speaks English. Regardless, coming back around as I get sidetracked. Okay, you thought it was weird too over in chat over there? Okay, I'm happy I'm not the only one. But I do like overall his take that the palicos have been messed around with, probably more than the weapons. which should be interesting.
And the stuff that he ends up doing in the game, and super useful. So I think it's going to be very good, particularly for new players, to have a Palico that is that useful.
This
But if
boss
you
fight
are
looks
a
great.
veteran, and you're just like, oh man, this feels so easy. Try going at it without the Palico. I think you will have a different experience. Now, another thing that I want to bring up is Sacred. And the reason I want to bring up Sacred is not even necessarily because of I know that probably a lot of people will bring this up, which is the usefulness of using Sacred to pick you back up off the ground after you've been knocked down, which is super useful and super powerful. I think I rarely use that. It was just like it didn't even cross my mind. Most of the time I'm just going off of muscle memory and I'm just like, oh, let me get back up. You know, I wouldn't think to call Sacred. I usually call Sacred when it's to move me around. And on some situations, I did call Sacred to sharpen my weapon. And yeah, it is what it is.
Which is awesome, by the way. The sharpening the weapon on your mount is amazing. I love it.
But beyond that, one of the things that I noticed about Sacred is that I feel like I barely know the layouts of any of the maps. This might be a me thing, but what ends up happening is just, you know, oh, monster moved away, call Sacred. Yep. That also makes it so that I actually don't know how to navigate these maps without Sacred. It takes Sacred away from me. I don't know where to go. And that is only exacerbated due to the fact that there are some nooks and crannies that only Sacred can get through. So like those, if you're talking about the Windward Plains, like those places on those rocks up top where Sacred goes, only Sacred can go there. Like you can't reach there as a hunter. So
that's a little disappointing. This is a really nitpicky thing, right? Because it would be fun to see somebody on YouTube or Twitch do like a no mount run. Maybe it's just because I love watching things from the community and I love people challenging what we're seeing other hunters do. That's a little bit disappointing. Not the end of the world. It would be fun to not have to use him, and that's coming from I was a big World guy, so that's my opinion as a World fan.
Navigating the maps requires Sacred in a lot of instances. And I feel like that made me, in a way, less aware of the layouts. But that could just be a me thing, but it's a little bit weird for me to kind of like balance that out with what I expected from other maps. So like, you put me in a map for Rise and Sunbreak, and I'm going to be web slinging all over the place with wire bugs, and I know exactly where I'm going. I know exactly where everything is because I had to learn that. And even if you were riding around the Palamute doesn't just ferry you to the monster. So you have to learn the routes and the stuff that you're doing.
Yeah.
And with Sacred just being so absolutely convenient, it's kind of like, in between you fighting the monster, whenever the monster moves away, you're just like, yep, Sacred, let's go, take me there. And the Sacred takes you exactly where the monster is every time, super fast, super efficient, to the point where I barely engaged with the pop-up camp system, right? You have the pop-up camp system where you're placing down these camps and all of these things, and there's not really much of a reason to do that because I can just go straight from base camp, get on Sacred will get me to the monster so fast that I think the time that it would take me to like, oh, let me teleport to a camp that's close, it's like, no, just press up D-pad, Sacred will zoom you right there so fast, doesn't
It is an interesting choice when they've also introduced customizations to your camps. But I wonder why they did that. I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing, but I do wonder why Capcom decided to do that, as they're also trying to expand the pop-up camps. I think it's a quandary, shall we say. That's the biggest word we'll use for the day. It's a quandary, chat. There is something about wandering around Monster Hunter Worlds on foot that I really enjoy. And he's right. You get to know the map. It's like when you're late at night. This is a really weird reference, but it popped into my head. I am on one tonight, guys. I apologize. My brain is just in weird places. But it's like when you have to go wake up in the middle of the night and use the bathroom. Like you know where everything in your house is between you and the bathroom. You know it. Like, you've lived in this place for, if not a year, multiple years, right? Like, you know the nooks and crannies of your own. You know where the light switch is. You you know where there may or may not be hurdles, whether it's an animal or toys on the floor, or your, you know, your wife or your husband or your girlfriend or boyfriend, like where they often leave crap. Like, you know these things. That's very similar to what it feels like to run around in Monster Hunter World is, and then he's touching on that, is you learn the map to where it becomes a part of like a limb. And you're like, oh, that's where I need to knock him into the wall. Oh, that's where that hurdle is. Oh, that's where that trap is. Oh, I know for sure that I can kind of bait him on and off this little ledge right here to work for my, like, there's all these things you learn when you're forced to slow down. So I think, again, he's right on point here. I think this is a solid take, in my opinion.
Doesn't even matter. So I'm not saying this as like a bad thing. I'm just saying this as something that I consider to be food for thought. Like, is this something that we want? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm still conflicted on it. And I'm not saying, again, people will take what I'm saying and they'll be like, oh, Rurikon hates sacred. It's like, no, that's not the case. I'm just thinking about things, right? But that's because I'm a big boomer and whatever. Now, the other things is obviously going to have to be focus mode and the whole thing. I made a whole video of feedback about focus mode during.
I don't think he's a boomer, but I do think self-awareness is important. It's a very admirable quality, but I think his the way that he's describing how he's feeling, I think is he's not far from the truth, in my opinion.
During the beta, and specifically the fact that we're still in that situation where if you go to the greatsword and you start charging and you hold down focus mode, you can move the camera with the left stick. Makes sense because, you know, your finger is going to be on the faceplate button, so you can't have your thumb touch on the camera stick. It just makes sense. You can move the stick with the left. And I think it sucks that they didn't add that functionality to a lot of the other weapons. So if I'm on the gun lance and I'm doing my combo, and you know my character can't move because I'm stuck in place doing like brah brah, why can't I turn my camera with the left stick? There's no reason. And there are other weapons. There's a ton of other weapons. Like, I made a whole video dedicated to this. You guys can go check that out. My feedback on focus and all that stuff. I'm really surprised that it made it into the game in this state. It's not a bad thing, but why? Why can't every weapon get the same functionality as the greatsword? Now, I know that some people will say, well, some inputs, you know, some weapons have directional inputs. Yeah,
Dude, he really knows this gun lance. Like, that's crazy. He really knows his gun lance. Like, that was impressive.
Agree. And in those, yeah, you can't move the camera. Yeah, makes sense. Makes perfect sense. But there's a ton of things that don't require directional input because you are locked in place while you're doing it. And I don't see a reason why I shouldn't be allowed to change the camera, especially because you can do it if you're playing mouse and keyboard. Hell, I can do it if I have paddles on the back of my controller.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, obviously the other complaint is still the Insect-Glaive controls, which are still the same. They didn't change it. They said that they weren't going to change it, so I wasn't expecting it. But, you know, in the review, as a part of the review, that is something that I have to bring up. I think it sucks that people that made the Insect-Glaive, basically to really get a good experience with the weapon, the best way to do it is with paddles on the back of your controller because, you know, you're not going to be charging B and doing Y combos and at the same time turning your camera. It's not going to happen. So, you know, I know that some players...
Just get good, guys. Why don't you all just get rich, huh? Pay to win? This crap pay to win? No, it's not. But I got an Elite Series controller for Christmas. And I'm in love with it. And this is what we'll be using for our hunts, by the way. To me, this feels like a fighting game. It always has been. And I can't bring myself to play this game on mouse and keyboard. So we'll be on PC, but I'll definitely be plugging in my Xbox controller.
Players do it and they do like crazy claw things. It's just like, look, not everybody wants to do crazy claw things on their controller, especially when this is clearly a problem in the control scheme. At least that's my opinion. I know that some people disagree with me. It is what it is. Another thing, no canteen. I've already brought that up. I miss the canteen a lot. In the place where the canteen would be, there's a dude there that just gives you rations from time to time.
No, really?
So you go up to him and he's like, oh, here's some rations. And he just keeps giving you rations, which you can then use to cook. But I miss the cantina experience, having like the cutscene of the palicos preparing
Dude, what?
and all that stuff. Oh, I always like that kind of stuff. Now, it's not like that stuff is gone. That is replaced with something which is the meals that some of the villages will prepare for you. So as you unlock locales throughout the game and all of that stuff.
Oh, cool.
And you do quests for the different villagers and the different places that you go to, eventually some of those villagers will invite you for a meal. And then you go there, you get a cutscene.
That's kind of cool.
The one that you guys will have seen, even in the benchmark tool. There's a cutscene where they're like breaking bread and spreading cheese on it and all of that stuff. There's a cutscene like that for the different places.
I'm getting hungry.
And all of those cutscenes are different. And from time to time, they just invite you, hey, come have a meal with us. And you'll see that marked on your map. There'll be like a well-done steak symbol on your map. And you go there, and then you talk to an NPC. And the NPC's like, oh, we wanted to offer you a meal. And then you go get that cutscene. So
I think that's okay. I think that's interesting. I mean, again, Capcom kind of does this, is they test things out and they give people exactly what they want, and then they kind of tweak other things nobody asked for, and they're like, what about this? But it's usually I rarely see a tweak from Capcom that's like two or three giant steps back, in my opinion. Again, no hashtag ad. I'm not paid. But a part of me's going to miss... I was about to get really cheeky and say, a part of me's going to miss skipping through that animation. But that does sound interesting. It would make them more special. Like if what he's saying is true, like you get to a new location and the people that you've either saved or this new area you've opened up, they cook you a meal as a thank you gift. Something like that is definitely more immersive.
So there is that, and those usually give you better buffs and all of that stuff, but those aren't available always. So you will be cycling through doing some of those, and then sometimes you go into your tent and cook, and then sometimes you might just BBQ out in the open. It's however you want to do it, but at the end of the day, I still miss the canteen. Very much like I miss another thing that is very near and dear to my heart, which is the Gathering Hub. There is no Gathering Hub.
This is the second person that's brought this up. Do people love the Gathering Hub that much? Did I miss something? Like the Iceborne Hub was like, there's the hot tubs and like there's some cool things in there. But I kind of liked the tower. Again, I have the original box art up there somewhere. But like Destiny 1, the old school tower, the beta to me felt like the tower from D1, but you just walk into it. I personally don't see a big problem with that. I don't know why people keep... I mean, am I the only one? You miss it? Okay. I might have missed that then. I could be off. I don't think I'm far off, but... yeah, I don't know. I just don't see that as a big deal.
It's like, oh, I really wanted the Gathering Hub. This again is one of those
Why?
things that I know that not all players want that. I'm just giving you guys my opinions on it. I wish there was a Gathering Hub, but there isn't one. The world is the Gathering Hub, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, I would, yeah, he's right. It's a taste thing. But I don't know. I think that that's fine. It's, I don't know. I don't think I'm far off. I think that it's fine. I really like the feeling of it. I love being able to see people from other countries pop in and out of the town as I was just kind of going through my settings or going through like different gear for the palette. Like, I kind of liked that, as opposed to I'm for sure gonna queue in this area. Like there's something, I don't know, because if you guys remember World too, like if you're in a bad server, you'd hop from server to, like you're just sitting there hopping from server to server, and maybe there will be a part of that in Monster Hunter Wilds. But based on what I saw in the beta, is it felt more alive than a Gathering Hub. A Gathering Hub to me feels like a video game lobby. whereas the settlement in Monster Hunter Wilds felt like a place in this world that real players that you may run into real players in. Does that make sense? Like they're just two different things, and maybe it's because I prefer more of the immersion than a controlled world. But I prefer the immersion. I like running into people.
I think is the way that the team is looking at it, because you can form a link party, then you can form an environment party, and everybody just gets together in the same place, and you go hunting monsters and having a good time.
Yeah.
And you're just all together in the same place, and that's what it is. But I still miss having that, you know, it's your little clubhouse where you hang out with everybody, and everybody's a gathering hub. I didn't like the fact that they didn't have one for Sunbreak, and I definitely miss.
So it's about exclusivity. Okay. Couldn't you do a private server though? I'm not criticizing him, right? No shade, but I feel like if that's especially if he's a big YouTuber, he could probably host his own server with a passcode or whatever. I feel like you could recreate that if you really wanted to. And maybe people in the community will figure that out, but
having a gathering hub here as well. The arena experience is also different from what you expect.
Okay.
I'm not sure how, again, because of the embargo restrictions, I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to talk about the arena, but it's not a big deal. It's just like quests as you remember them, like arena as you remember it, fundamentally different. At least the version of the game that I played. Who knows if that is something that is getting updated or not. As a final conclusion, the key words that I would say for Monster Hunter Wilds are immersion and flow. It's all about immersing you into the world, experiencing the ecology if that's something that you're into.
We took notes, chat. We're about to go over them.
And just flowing through quests with as little attrition as possible without having to worry about, oh, I gotta go do the thing, gotta go do the thing, gotta go do this, gotta go do that. It's like, no, just flow. Just do it. Campaign is very different, like I've already mentioned. It's just, it bears repeating because I think that for a lot of people in the beginning, it's even going to feel a little bit alienating because I felt that way as I was going through the campaign. I was like, I don't know, this feels so different. It's kind of weird. But after a while, after you get used to it, I ended up liking it. I like it a lot, personally. Hunting action, still awesome. Personally, I can't wait to do my real save on stream. And in terms of whether or not would I recommend the game, absolutely. It's super easy recommendation, so long as your rig can run it. So if you're playing, I gotta play.
Caveat.
PlayStation, if the performance is like what I experienced at the preview event, I think it's easy recommendation. And if you're playing on PC, make sure to run the benchmark tool because I've already seen mileage varies wildly depending on everybody's PCs and all of that stuff. But if your rig can run it at a decent frame rate, yeah, super easy recommendation. I think you're going to have an absolute blast with it. I'm going to be streaming the whole thing here in the channel, so make sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, all of that jazz. And for now, that is going to be it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this review. See you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe. Peace out.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I just dropped a link. Give him a like if you like his content. I think he's solid. He's also a really good follow on X, formerly known as Twitter. He does a great job. If you guys have been here for the last hour, I might have said this already, but he does a great job of sharing resources for new hunters. And not just things that he creates, but if he finds a community member that creates a spreadsheet that clarifies damage types or resistance type or multipliers or whatever it might be, he does a really good job of kind of sharing those things with other people. So I'm gonna pull up a notes document just so we can see as we kind of wind down here. Bye-bye. What I'm going to go over really quickly, guys, are I wrote down some notes. We looked at people in the community that I trust and then a more traditional YouTube outlet. And basically, I have positives and negatives. I'm going to write down where the circles overlap, just so that you stay informed as a consumer, and that we try to remain honest. It's a game that's going to be wildly successful, in my opinion, commercially. But as always, do not feel pressure to pre-order. Like, if there's something, especially if you're a PC player, it sounds like the performance may be something that will need to be ironed out. But it sounds like on consoles it's going to run great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to turn down the music a little, Peter. Thank you so much for the piano. Let's look at this really quickly. So universally, when I'm looking at pros that overlap, it looks like what Monster Hunter Wilds is going to have their gear and item wish list system is improved. We had both of them talk about that. We had multiple people say, oh gosh, I don't know how to spell this, but how do you spell immersion? The immersion is top notch here, guys. That's what we just watched like 4 or 5 review videos from trusted people online. We took notes about what we thought were the most prominent pros and cons, and we're checking right now, and if they overlap, I'm going to write them down, and then we can discuss in chat. The other positive thing was the seasonal changes. They kept saying like, oh, I can't talk about it or whatever. So this is a special one in that we probably won't know why that's a pro until we play the game ourselves. And I love stuff like this. I think this is great. Anything they can do to switch up the Monster Hunter experience slightly from game to game, I think is a positive. So I'm going to put that down in the positive category. Music, for those of you that care, almost all of them mentioned how impressive the score is. So I think that's something that we as gamers will have something to look forward to. And the last thing was the cooking system. So there was mention of the old cooking system, which is where you had the Meowster. What was his name? He was like the chief cat that cooked all your food in the base game of Monster Hunter World. That system's gone. They're replacing it with a new system. But in general, the understanding of the cooking system, how it impacts you, almost every single video said that they liked what it turned into. So I think that that's a positive. The other pros, obviously, is none of them said this outright, but they like this game. The fighting systems are good. The weapon choice is still solid. Good lord. And something we'll put in both categories is the... My fingers aren't working. Is the size of the world. So based on the notes I took, these are most of the positives that I'm going to write in chat too. Just so people don't think that like, oh, the link's the last thing that is going to be in chat. Why is it a winky face? What the frick did I do? Sorry about that. What? Well, I guess I just winked at you guys. I apologize. Or if you like it, I guess you're welcome. I don't know. Take it or leave it. Okay. And then to clarify, what they did was we had two PlayStation players review it and 3 PC players. And almost every single PC player, the biggest con, they mentioned that even running the same systems, one video was very adamant about this, even when you're running the same system, him and a buddy, they were still getting different results. So again, a precursor to this would be, and Capcom said this before, a caveat, I mean, from Capcom, a caveat from Capcom would be that there are going to be patches day one, there's going to be patches post-launch, but we are looking at videos from people that got to play this game for, 100 or more hours. So these are just commonalities we're seeing across the review videos that we just watched and things that I'm trying to summarize for you guys. And please use this information before you pre-order. I am in love with World. I have almost 400 hours on it between my Xbox and my PC. There's people who have like thousands of hours on Monster Hunter. So I am by no means an oracle or, my word is not law. Just use your best judgment. Do not get bought into by FOMO or whatever it might be. Just try and be honest, right? Everybody works hard for their money, so protect it. And if you love the game, buy it and enjoy it. The other con, it was kind of in the pros, but this one I was taking little tally marks whenever somebody mentioned the same thing, was map size. It's in the pros, meaning it's great, it's big. One of the cons was, does it need to be this big? Is it a game breaker? No. Is it the end of the world? No. But a couple of them wondered if it was too big. That's what she said. The other, I apologize, family friendly. Yeah, we're multi-streaming. Yeah, so if I do respond to somebody else, you're not going crazy. I'm not talking to myself. I'm not going crazy. There may be other chats that you guys don't see that I'm responding to. The other thing that 3 out of the 5 talked about. What does that say? Oh, it was the story tracking with a team. So they mentioned that it's not the best. You are not in cutscenes with your teammates. Again, not the end of the world. And once you get through the story, teaming up is really seamless. But they're saying if you're tracking storylines, pretty much you need to start at the same place and progress together. So that is a con. I think we all wish it was more seamless. Even the most avid Monster Hunter fans, I think, would admit that it would be nice if the story tracking while in a team was a little bit more streamlined. The other thing, and I've harped on this too, I added my own checkmark next to it, is... I hope I spelt that right. There are parts of this game that feel, specifically the first opening part that's mostly a desert, if you guys played the beta. I just don't think that was a super impressive part of the map to show off visually. I understand it's probably like the beginning, right? It's the beginning of the game. But it just seems like there's a lot of parts of what we're seeing so far where there's a lot of parts where it's just like, this is sand colored. Everything. The monster, the trees, the bushes, the ground, the smaller monsters. Like, there's 2 or 3 parts of these maps that I think could benefit from some slight reworkings. My solution would be to rework the monsters and not the vegetation, because it sounds like there's, again, seasonal changes in vegetation. I think what I would prefer to battle this con is to make monsters stand out a bit more, and not with an outline and not with yellow paint. Please don't put yellow paint on the monster. I just think it would be nice if the monsters had a little bit more color to them, or markings, maybe some slightly more noticeable markings, as opposed to everything almost at moments camouflaging in with the environment. There's a really easy case for why an animal would camouflage into their environment. I get that. But not every animal camouflage, like in the real world, not every animal camouflages into their environment. You know? And I think instead of reworking the world, it may behoove Capcom to do some really small visual changes on monsters so that you can more easily separate them from the backdrop. A great example is, I don't know what it's called, but it's the spider with the flower on its back. There is something beautiful about that blue world, that blue and green world, and then seeing that bright red, piece of the monster, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's beautiful, but it's trying to kill me, and and the rest of its body is black, so I can definitely tell it apart from the world, but it's not cheesy. I feel like that might be one of their better design monsters based on what we've seen. And it's parts of it are really impressive, but multiple times it was brought up just kind of how dull some of the colors are across the map, and I think that those are valid criticisms based on what I've seen personally. The last con we saw, which I think is worth noting, in terms of things that overlap across all the review videos we just watched, it would be short of taking your Palico out of the fight, it sounds like we will not have as much customization over the abilities your Palico has. So in World, there was a secondary ability, and there were, again, I can't remember, it was somewhere from 4 to 8, I don't remember the exact number, but there were different tools you could give your Palico, depending on how you wanted them to react, and even at times throughout the fight, you could call on that secondary ability, or tertiary ability. That's another big word of the day, I apologize. It sounds like from what these reviewers just said, we're not going to have as much control over our Palicos. And again, it sounds like what a really good thing to do for seasoned monster hunters if we want an increased difficulty is, and the option exists within games to do this, naturally, you don't need a mod, but it would be to tell your Palico to stay at home. It would be to tell your Palico, like, hey, don't come on this hunt. I'm going to try to do it on my own. So I think that's, again, valid feedback. And it's a new game. Like, this is not World 2.0. This is a new game. It's what we all asked for, is a new experience. So with that said, guys, this is kind of the summary of our stream today. We watched a lot of videos from people that I trust in the community. We got a lot of feedback. We talked about it as chat. Thank you so much for hanging out, guys. Thank you for all the follows. Wherever you're watching, I appreciate it. But I think this is a good list. If you guys want to check out any of the people that I mentioned, I've been putting their links in chat. And if I've used your video today, thank you so much for getting that access and putting time into your reviews. It's so great for us as consumers just to share this information with each other. Again, because our money's important. Our time is important. So to all the reviewers out there, I thank you. To all the chatters, thank you so much. If you like what you see, give me a follow. Like me wherever you want to follow me. It would go a long way. The game is so close. We've done so much chatting today. The game is almost here. And I am so excited, guys. I'm so excited to do it with you. To just go on more hunts, discover new monsters, talk about strategies. For you guys to see me utterly fail and lose my mind, it'll be fun. It'll be a good time, I promise. We'll be doing Charge Blade for our first playthrough. We will be doing Controller for our first playthrough. And we'll just have some chill streams and some hot takes. thank you so much for joining me on this marvelous Monday as we wind down. My name's MrRageless, and you guys have been inside the Gamerhood, and I could not be more happy to see you all here. Thank you again for the follows. Thank you so much, man. Absolutely. Absolutely. My name's MrRageless. Again, guys, I just hope that you have a good night, and I promise you that when I wake up in the morning, I will be rageless. Have a good night. Be good to each other. Do something for yourself and do something for somebody else. Just enjoy your week. And remember, Monster Hunter is right around the corner. So get some sleep, stock up on Mountain Dew, do whatever you gotta do to get ready, to get in the zone, guys. It's gonna be a great week. It's gonna be an amazing weekend. So I hope you all have fun. Anyways, until next time, guys, until we meet again, thank you so much for hanging out, and I will catch you in the next episode of MrRageless's Neighborhood. Until next time.